Welcome to the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast with your host, two-time defending ATV motocross national champion, Cody Jansen.
Am I on air? What's up, everybody? We're back. I'm your host, Cody Jansen, and welcome to episode 59 of the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, our Redbud review pod presented by our title sponsor, CST Tires, available for purchase at shop.csttires.com. Redbud was another wild one this past weekend, and we'll cover all the craziness in the episode ahead. Casey Greek will join us to help break down all the action, and then we'll be joined by two guys that were part of the biggest headlines from Redbud weekend. Max Linquist, the 17-year-old rookie who grabbed his first career pro class podium with a third overall at Redbud, will stop by first, and then later on another 17-year-old Dane Molander who came out of nowhere to win pro sport will drop in as well. And man, you'd be hard pressed to find two better young men than these two, so you're really going to enjoy this one. Major thanks to our sponsors who are all on board with us tonight. CST Tires, go to shop.csttires.com. Yamaha, thanks to Blue Crew. Valvoline, SSI Decals, DID Racing Chain, Namura Technologies, Bronco ATV and UTV Components, Impact Solutions, Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply, Forworks Carbon, DP Brakes, Gripped Gloves, Factory 43, Bikes, Trikes and Quads LLC, and Manscaped. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DIGGINGDEEP20 at manscaped.com. Their clippers rock, their nose hair trimmer is amazing, and they have brand new industry-leading products that just hit the market as well. Full disclosure, I've been saying it for multiple episodes now. The new Lawnmower 4.0 from Manscaped is my secret to keeping a perfect beard. This new electric trimmer is so nice that, full disclosure, I've only been using it for my facial hair, but don't tell anybody. Shh. So check out Manscaped. I wish I would have sooner. Get 20% off with free shipping by using code DIGGINGDEEP20 at manscaped.com. Support all these great companies that support us, and for any products that fall through the cracks, click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner on our website to help us out. By accessing Rocky Mountain from our specific link, we get a percentage of that, and we both know you need parts and gear, so this is the easiest way to help us out. Just use our link instead of the standard Rocky Mountain link. That's it. That's all we ask. No matter what off-road gear parts you need, Rocky Mountain ATVMC has you covered. So before you buy, click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner on our website to help us out in a major way, and we cannot thank you enough for that. We've been shouting out our donors on recent episodes, and I have to give a major shout out to Dale Yammer this week for his support of our efforts. Dale, you're the freaking man. Cheers, mate. Speaking to you guys that have donated, it means so damn much to me because it shows you guys appreciate all the hard work we're putting into this thing in an attempt to help the sport that we love. It truly means so much to us. It really does help. So from the bottom of our hearts, thanks so much. You can find the Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee donation links on our website for anyone else who is interested. Thanks so much, guys. Now, the 30-second board is up, it's sideways, and the gate is down. Time to dig deep. Let's go. All right, guys, not only did this man accurately predict Max Linquist's podium at Redbud, kind of, but he also finished 6th in Digging Deep ATVMX Fantasy last weekend. Brought to you by our friends at Rocky Mountain ATVMC, your one-stop shop for parts, gear, and everything in between to make your ride the best ride. Click the Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner on our website, diggingdeepatvmx.com today for all of your gear and parts needs and to help us out. From Impact Solutions, say hello to Mr. Casey Greek. What's up, Casey? You're riding a high right now. Where are you hiding that crystal ball at, huh?
Yeah, for sure. Sort of predicted it correctly. And I was getting the pressure from the entire Linquist crew, like, hey, you jinxed us, blah, blah, blah. But no, happy to see Max pull that off and, at least do it in the matter of I was somewhat in that area of being correct on that. And we all kind of knew that it would probably happen at Redbud, so I was trying to predict that it would happen before. But yeah, no, and then my best finish ever in any fantasy league that I've ever played. So I'm pretty excited about that. Just one more guy in the right direction, and I think I could have won this weekend. So happy to go on that level right now.
Yeah, so Redbud, as far as fantasy goes, was a crazy one. There was results all over the place. There was carnage everywhere. So you navigated all that really well. But yeah, so starting with the coverage of the race here, I think everyone is kind of swamped with this quick turnaround before Loretta's here. So we're gonna attempt to keep this as a shorter episode tonight. Can't wait to get into all the crazy racing and stuff that took place this weekend at Redbud. But as always, Casey, your Impact Solutions Impact Moment. We'll start with that, where we highlight something good and positive happening in ATV motocross.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty easy this weekend in a sense. And we just sort of talked about it a little bit. Me finishing top 6 in Digging Deep Fantasy. I mean, that's pretty impressive. But no, on a real note, Max Linquist, podium. But the real moment for me with Max this weekend was Vince Nerman crashed and was trapped under his bike in qualifying, and Max stopped and helped him. And I think any one of those guys would have done it. It just happened to be that there's a lot of hype around Max, and we're going to talk about him a lot in this show.
Right.
And he was the first one to Vince, and he stopped his lap to help Vince get out from underneath his bike, made sure he was somewhat okay, and then proceeded in qualifying. So that's impressive to me that any of these guys are willing to do that. I've seen some other racing sports where guys would literally just look over and keep going. So that's pretty much it for me. I didn't have any other real drastic standouts, at least that I can remember at the moment.
So we're going to get into Max, obviously, like you said, a lot on this episode, but the fact that that this kid is 17 years old, and now we're not even talking about the racing, just the maturity. And we see, there's tons of great, heady, respectable, name, whatever word you want to use, young kids in our sport right now. But Max Linquist might be heading that charge, because man, when you talk to him, you'd think he was a veteran of this thing. Such a good kid, great head on his shoulders. So none of that surprises me there, but I didn't know about that. I didn't know about that story. So I'm glad you shared it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's just needs to be said out there with, and if it was anybody, and just the camaraderie that these guys have between each other. And, Vince had a rough go at it this weekend in qualifying. And so just wanting to see him, heal up and get back out there and be ready for Loretta's, and then just, enjoying the process of watching these riders mature and grow is always, I think it's a blessing just to watch this stuff. I mean, I've watched these guys. I've literally known Max since he was riding 50s. And I want to say I've known Joel since he was riding probably 70s and 90s, but I'll just go with 90s. So to see where these guys have come and how many years that we've been involved with this, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, the talent in the sport right now is incredible. There's obviously a lot of great dudes there as well, so that's awesome to hear. Also, I mean, I kind of just want to take on this opportunity here to touch on the fact on a personal level, to note the major impact that all of our listeners and fans are having on us here at Digging Deep this weekend, man. I'm pretty sure I talked to more people in a 3-day span than any other 3-day span in my life. It was all positive, all love, all embrace. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank everybody for that. I really can't thank everyone enough for that. We're the reason why, the listeners are the reason why we do this. So that was pretty special. It was crazy. It was like my voice or whatever was, more tore up than my body was from riding. It was pretty crazy. So that's it for this week's Impact Solutions Impact Moment. Taking it from the top then, Casey, does any track prompt more "my shocks suck" comments than Redbud does? Because all I heard about was how terribly rough the track was on Friday, and I found myself thinking, what did you people expect? It's Redbud.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in all honesty, it wasn't a lot of like that. It was more just some like weird situations where people had just bought some bikes and stuff, and so they weren't set up for them. So you're trying to set it up midday and try to help everyone else you can, and then just kind of, I say this loosely, but just kind of babysitting a bunch of other people. But the guys like I've been working with constantly all year, I mean, like Dane Molander, I literally talked to him one time on Friday. Like after, say, like he'd been on the track 3 or 4 times maybe. And I went and checked on him real quick because I was so busy just running around and fixing little things and trying to help people get some new bikes set up or whatever it was. And I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, I haven't been over much. I'm like, all good. And he's like, don't touch a thing. My bike's perfect. he's that kid, like he'll come tell me like, hey, I feel a little off here. Can you help me out here or whatever it is? And so it wasn't a lot of the people that I work with constantly that I was really chasing. There's some new people and stuff like that, which was great, to be able to put some time into them. So I wasn't, I was spread very thin on Friday. But yeah, I mean, Redbud's rough. And so a lot of times you just kind of have to just know. I mean, you and I talked for quite a while and you're like, yeah, I don't know. It's just rough. So I don't really even know what to tell you because it's hard to actually pinpoint something that could be or whatever. So you throw a couple ideas out up there. I talked to like Neil Larson and he's just like, man, it's just so rough. And so I'm like, we'll try this and see if this makes it any better. And we'll figure out what direction to go into. And so we worked, a little bit on Friday. And then by the end of Friday, he was pretty stoked on everything. And I think he had a pretty impressive weekend too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's one of those things. It's, you just have to go in with the mindset that, hey, it's going to be rough. You just, kind of got to ride through it a little bit. Because I'm a guy that, man, I don't change my clickers barely ever, like ever. Yeah. So, I didn't come off the racetrack thinking, oh, I got to change this or that. It was like, well, Friday's always a little rougher than any of the other days. And hopefully it's going to be a little better, Saturday and Sunday, but my shocks are where they need to be. So I guess you'd go as far as to say that it was fun to be a shock guy at Redbud. All right. So, I knew I was going to get a laugh out of you there, but at least the weather was picture perfect, especially after what everybody dealt with at Unadilla. And one guy that didn't have any issue was Chad Wienen. You kind of got to start with him. Surprise, surprise. He's been dominant at Redbud over the years, won one on the day. He passed Joel about 2/3 of the way through Moto 1 and then led all the laps in Moto 2. Chad padded his points lead. He's now 22 points up on Joel with 4 motos remaining. This is what I want to say about Chad. We all knew that Joel would take a step forward with this program this season, and he surely did on the Yamaha. There's no doubt about that. The bike's better, the program's better, all those things for Joel Hetrick. He took a step. What we didn't expect was Chad Wienen would take another step forward too. I don't know how the heck he does it, but credit to this man and to the listeners. Appreciate the greatness that we're witnessing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Chad always rises to the occasion. He always has. Once he figured it out, like after he got hurt in 2011, when he came back in 2012, he was a different animal than he was in years prior to that. And being that we've been in this for so long and we've kind of got to witness this stuff, and then, the listeners have got to hear Chad's entire story on the show. Mm-hmm. And seeing, just watching it and watching him grow and mature over the years and being, friends with Chad over the years and just seeing that growth. I mean, he always figures out a way to step up. And, I think every year, of course, I'm kind of on the other side, more involved with Joel's side of things. You're just like, there's no way he could step up anymore. There's no way, like, you're always going to keep that in your mind because that's what you do. We're trying to be the most, be competitive and everything. But Chad, I mean, you got to give it to him. He always figures out a way to step up and be a champion. I mean, that's why he's in that category of, could be the GOAT of ATV motocross.
Yeah, it is crazy. I don't know. And there'll be listeners that maybe can connect with this, but when you're at an event, you're at a sporting event of some kind and you see, like a legendary figure of that sport, whether it's motorsports, stick and ball sports, whatever. And there's just this aura that follows that individual. And that's kind of what Chad has. I don't know how to explain it. I see it with Joel too, 100%, but those guys are just so iconic in our sport. And one of these days, whether it's, a year from now, 5 years from now, whatever it is, when Chad is gone, there's going to be a big void left, behind. And you just kind of want everybody to appreciate him and what he's doing. If you look back, like what was Joel's first title year? Was that 2017? I think the crazy part that both of those guys, because when you think back then and Joel was so good and, Chad, he didn't have it. He didn't have that extra gear at the end of the year. And now to look back and think how much both of those guys have improved over the last 4 or 5 years there, it's just crazy to think. Like our sport is at such an awesome level. And for each of those guys, thank God for each of them, because otherwise might just be a runaway each and every weekend, right? If there was only one of them. So it's cool that for basically the entirety of most of their careers, I know Joel wasn't there for the beginning of Chad's, but man, it's been a rivalry that's been awesome for the sport. But just to think how much improvement, how much better, how much awesome racing we've seen, the way that those two have just continued to rise to the occasion of the other guy. It's just been, man, it's been so fun to watch. And someday we're going to miss these battles, right? We're going to miss seeing, it's going to be legend of the battles we saw between those two. Just kind of, it's cool to think about all the awesome racing we've seen between those two guys.
When I feel like I'm, at least for me, like almost numb to the fact of like how good these guys are, and I'm just around them so much. I've been around them forever, so they're just another normal person to me. Like they're just friends,
right?
And I just walk right into their motorhome. Like it's just, the door's unlocked. Like I would expect the same thing if they could just walk right in my house. Like it wouldn't bother me one bit. But I hope that the people that are coming to the races, the fans, the true people that are in this sport, are getting the feelings of that I was getting as a kid when I'd go to go to races and see guys like Jeremy McGrath and Ricky Carmichael and all these guys. And then when I came into this sport, I was a dirt bike guy before, and I kind of jumped right into this with working with one of the greatest in the sport. So you instantly almost became numb.
Doug Gust.
But as a kid, and as a kid being so like involved in racing and just infatuated with it my entire life, that's the reason I'm still involved. It's because of those feelings that I had when I was young. So I hope these kids and the fans of the sport really get those goosebump feelings and understand what you're witnessing with a guy like Chad Wienen and Joel Hetrick, and the list goes on and on. And what we're getting ready to see, and kind of going into our next topic pretty smoothly here, is what we're going to see with Bryce Ford and Max Linquist and the rivalry that we're seeing there. I mean, to me, I feel like you're seeing a younger versions of the two guys that we've been sitting here talking about going on right now. You got Bryce that's just explosive fast all the time, and you got Max that's obviously very fast, but he's very calculated and very methodical about what he's doing. And that's kind of the talks that we've always had about Joel and Chad. Joel just ridiculously fast, Chad very fast but very calculated. So, and I think that's just something, as we're talking about Max and Bryce here, it's going to be a topic that we're talking about for years with these two guys. They're definitely the young guns coming through, and they're the guys that are inserting themselves into this position to end up being very, very serious title threats and rivals throughout the years.
Absolutely. I think that's definitely on cue. That's the next rivalry up and coming. And there's going to be a lot of guys that are going to want to get in that mix as well. But that could be the headliner. And just touching on that topic that you were kind of tying up there, I do think it's cool for me, and I saw it this weekend, but I see some instances where, you see a small child, a little guy, sticking his hand out to get it, high five from Chad Wienen or Joel Hetrick, and they just freak. And, all of us, so many of us that are listening, you and I here, you can relate with that. Like you can remember when that was you, and there was guys in sports, maybe this sport, that you looked up to, and it was like, man, those are superheroes to people out there. So I think I love seeing that, because it's like, man, because I feel the same way. These guys are friends now to me, but when I see that other people still putting them up on that pedestal, putting them, maybe that's not the right way to say it, but infatuated with these athletes. That's cool, because I was once that person too, with guys like Doug Gust, guys like, those past legends that you're talking about. But getting back to the racing we saw this past weekend, Joel Hetrick, he went 2-2 on the day, solid riding. And Joel said as much on the podium. He said he felt good about his riding. You're the Joel Hetrick whisperer, Casey. Tell us about Joel's day a little bit and the vibes over there in the Phoenix Racing tent.
Yeah, I think overall he was pretty happy. I was surprised to see him not quite as angry after, like, say, the first moto as I would anticipated. But he just kind of, he said he laid it out there. He had a couple, little struggles for himself, but he said overall he was happy with his machine. He was happy with the team. the entire package was there. And that was just kind of what he said. It wasn't, there's not much in-depth insight there for the weekend. It was something that I think right now going into somewhere like Redbud against a guy that's 6'5" and you're 5'5", like it's always going to be a little bit tougher for Joel when we get to these tracks that the holes are 3 foot, 4 foot deep. A rough track isn't always the same meaning as like Redbud rough. Even Walnut this year, it wasn't nearly as rough as Redbud was. It had a harder base this year. Maybe they didn't disc it as deep or whatever, and it was just more choppy than it was actual real rough deep stuff. So I mean, he didn't really have much insight on it. He just kind of obviously disappointed a little bit. I think he was almost more, when he was leading and gets past, obviously that stings, but I think when it come to Sunday, he was pretty fired up and felt like that he had Chad covered in the pro stock class. And just, one tiny little mistake is what cost him that second moto and getting overall there. So I think he's looking forward to the next couple of races. And I think you're going to see Joel, he's got some personal things going on with selling a house and different things. And so I think he's going to be settled back in and ready to go at Loretta's. And I think you're going to see the Joel Hedrick that we're used to.
Yeah, I think that we can surely expect to see that, especially on the two tracks that are on the docket. But talking about Redbud, I'm sure that some of those emotions or maybe lack thereof on Saturday probably did have something to do with that. It was Redbud. We knew, his back was squarely against the proverbial wall there, but Chad's just been so good at Redbud over the years. The track gets so gnarly. I'm sure that had something to do with it. But yeah, I mean, there's sometimes you can feel a peace when you put everything out there and do your best. And hey, if it wasn't enough, at least I know I did my best, so I'm sure that's what Joel was feeling there.
Yeah, for sure. And some days you're just not, you're not the fastest guy that day, or everything didn't go your way. And I think as these racers mature, they figure those things out. I mean, how many times have we had, has Chad had to finish second or something and he got up on the podium and he did his job and he wasn't a sore loser. And I think there's a lot to be said about that. So, I mean,
Agreed.
You can't take anything from Joel. I mean, he flat out said he had some arm pump issues or something going on. I didn't even really get to talk to him too much about that. But I think it just comes down to there was a lot of pressure on him this weekend. And I think he took it exactly the way he should have. He went out there and laid it out and tried to do his best. So
that's what
if you leave it all out there, you're good.
Yeah, that's what a true professional does. You do your best and hold your head high afterwards. So good on Joel there. Okay, so we got the two title combatants out of the way. Now this is when things really got interesting because it was truly a crazy day at Redbud. The lines get a little blurred, Casey, on whether you predicted Max Linquist would get a podium before Redbud or at Redbud. I'm joking, obviously. I think, like you said, we knew he had good chances. He had a good chance at Redbud. So then you kind of wanted to stick your head out, more on a limb there to see if he would get one before that. But Max got it done on Saturday, probably creating the biggest headline of the weekend by earning his first career podium. Casey, take your victory lap.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple there. Couple decent starts for Max this weekend, especially in the second moto.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we see. I mean, we've seen Janusa kind of have the same ride as Max did at Sunset Ridge. Just got a good start and put himself in a position and was in a breakaway early on in the moto. And then you just kind of solidify that. And then with the battle that we've seen with Bryce and Rastrelli, the first moto.
Yes.
I mean, it just shows, what it is. And it's all about being in position. And that's what Max did this weekend. I mean, he definitely was impressive. He rode his butt off and he deserved that podium this weekend.
Yeah, this kid is only 17 years old. So he's not only just a rookie, but he's just 17 years old. He's a 17-year-old rookie. When you look at the guys that he's running with, you look at the guys that he's beating. I mean, I'm convinced literally anything is possible for Max Linquist going forward and honestly soon.
Yeah, definitely. And he has a lot of time ahead of him, and just even listening to him on the podium and things like that, like, and listening to really not even what Max said on the podium, but what Chad said on the podium.
Okay.
Chad's already paying attention. Chad's trying to move someone into, when Chad can't race forever, so he's going to have someone to fill his shoes there at Winged Motorsports. So he made it pretty dang clear, in all honesty, about sort of what their plans are for the future, in a pretty quick, short sentences, if anyone was paying attention. So it's going to be cool.
Yeah, that was sneaky big news there from Chad Wienen. But yeah, I mean, Max killed it. What do you say we get Max in here to talk about an unforgettable weekend for him? All right, guys, we said we'd get this kid back on if and when he made the pro class podium. Well, he achieved this lifelong goal this past weekend, and we are stoked to chat with him about it. Brought to you by DID Racing Chain and their 520 ATV2 chain. Pick up a DID chain today at your local dealer or reputable online reseller. It's my pleasure to introduce reigning Pro-Am national champion, reigning amateur rider of the year, current AMA ATV Pro Class rookie phenom, and now Pro Class podium finisher. Fresh off that podium, say hello to Mixer Max Linquist. What's up, man?
Hey, Cody. Thanks for getting me back on here.
Hey, we said we were gonna make it happen when you made the podium, and you did that this weekend. Chad Wienen, Joel Hetrick, and Max Linquist. Those were the podium finishers at Redbud. Two legends, and you, Max, a 17-year-old rookie. Explain what that felt like to accomplish such an amazing feat this past weekend.
Oh man, there's not many words to describe that. It was definitely a weekend that stands out in my career and will always stand out. Definitely one that I'll never forget. There's never anything like your first, and it was super cool to do it where we did, and, with all the family and everyone around, like, especially just how the weekend went, as I'm sure we'll get into here, just like was super blessed and super cool weekend to say the least.
Mm-hmm. So when did it hit you? And we can talk about the racing day a little more. I guess we should start with that. So tell me about the racing itself, your first moto, then your second moto, because it has to feel like you probably feels like to you like a big blur at this point. Like it just like it all came together and it ended up being the perfect day. But tell me about the race day a little bit.
Yeah, was super excited for the race day. Redbud's always like a mark on the calendar for me. Just like have always had good finishes there, always coming to that one excited, and was the same this year. Came in and thought I had the track figured out pretty good. Like time qualifying went pretty decent. Once I got the bike set up where I wanted it, it qualified fifth. We were pretty close to the top three, like wasn't too far off, so it was pretty happy with just how the day started. And then come Moto 1, things kind of went sideways on me for a minute. And, I just creeped up with that long gate, and the gate dropped right on the front tires. Like just, like something I wish I could take back, we kind of laughed about it. So I ran a different clutch in that first moto than I had prior this season. I ran a BTL, and I hadn't ran it since I was in Texas. So it had been like a few months, and I got some practice on it, and I kind of thought that's what I wanted to do for this rough beat track. And and ended up in time qualifying, my dad's like, he's like, I watched you ride with it. He's like, I just don't like the idea of going into a race and not racing something you're not super familiar with. And I was like, I really like how it's working. And yeah, I kind of bit myself on the butt with that one. So my dad gave me heck about it, but it worked out. I hit the gate, and luckily just a quick rock back of the bike, and the gate dropped and came into the first turn last. But honestly, by the time I think like the first lap was over, I was already in eighth. Like it just, I don't know, like just some really good line choices early got me, right up into that top 10 pretty easy. And then from there, just a couple good passes, and I got to sixth. And then from there, it was everyone else kind of separated themselves at that point, and I was just kind of clicking off laps, and when the moto was said and done, I wasn't exactly thrilled with it. I shot myself in the foot. It was my mistake. And obviously, we made some changes for the next one and went back to what I was used to. And, it worked, came out of that start. And I honestly didn't have the greatest start, just really hugged it tight in the turn and stayed in it. I honestly saw Chad and I was like, this dude always seems to have a good start. And I just kind of followed in behind him and, he pulled out third and I pulled out right behind him. And it was kind of like practice again. I was like, all right, like just got to stick with him as long as I can. And, he made the pass the second really fast and Joel was out front. And then I did the same, got into third, within half a lap and just saw those guys in front of me and knew that this was a great opportunity for me. I hadn't had that kind of opportunity really yet this year to start up there with those guys and see that pace. And it was something that, I really wanted to prove to myself that I could hang up there and, see where I was at. And, Chad made a quick pass on Joel and then, Joel made a little bobble and it put me right on him. And, for me, that was the coolest thing, getting to be up front with those guys and just see where I was at and, really run with Joel for a few laps. And, that worked really well. For me, I just knew if I could keep pace with him, I should be able to separate myself, from everyone else. And that's kind of just how it worked out. And then honestly, I didn't know I was in the third overall position until about 5 or 6 laps in. All of a sudden, I kind of looked back and realized that, Wesley Wolf's behind me and then Brandon Hogue. And I was like, wait a second, Wesley DNF the first one. And I started doing the math in my head and kind of figured it out. And then I got the pit board that was back off and settle down. I was definitely pushing pretty hard the first couple laps to keep up with those guys and really push myself. And, I felt good with where I was at, but once I saw that, I was kind of like, okay, took a look behind me and was like, all right, this is more about just smooth, consistent, steady laps. And from there, just hit my marks lap after lap. And then honestly, the first half of the race was super fast, went by super quick. And then, man, when they gave me that 2-lap board, everything was going good till they gave me that. Those last 2 laps just felt like they took forever. I could not wait for that race to get over. And when it was over, it didn't really hit me right away that, when we made the podium. I knew I finished third, but it just kind of took a minute to sink in. And yeah, definitely was a really good moto for me, and then ended up working out in my favor to get me on that podium.
Yeah, in Moto 2, and I was gonna touch on that. You stayed tight with Joel for nearly half the race, and I thought to myself, that probably worked in 2 ways, both in a positive way. I mean, in one aspect, it probably helped the race fly by. You're just trying to stick with them, I'm sure. The other thing that did is if you could keep a toe strap on him, that was going to help you distance yourself from the rest of the field and just do the racing thing instead of doing the math. And then that was the other thing I was thinking, okay, at what point did Max either figure it out himself that he's in podium position, or at what point did your dad have to be balancing, okay, do I tell him? Do I not tell him? You know what I mean? Is that going to be pressure? Is that going to change your mental game or whatever? You know what I mean? I was really interested to learn that.
Yeah, honestly, after the race, my dad never straight up put it on the board you've got third, stay where you are. And
okay.
After the race, I asked him, I was like, why didn't you ever say anything? He's like, I figured it out about we ended up figuring out it was about the same time I figured it out that he had it figured out. And he's like, honestly, you were so set on just keeping up with Joel and riding. He's like, you looked like you were riding so comfortable. He's like, I didn't want to throw you off. He's like, I hadn't, you hadn't had that chance all year. And I just didn't want to, give you any more pressure than you needed. And he's like, you were riding good. And he's like, so he threw it. You just to be smart and kind of lay back and relax. And, as soon as I saw that, I was like, all right, I kind of knew at that point, I was game for that. Just, kind of, pull off of Joel and just hit my pace, slow down a little bit and be very comfy. And, from there, just, run my laps. And that's exactly what we did. And it worked out. But to go back to your other point too, yeah, that was my whole thought right away. Like as soon as I saw Joel in front of me, was just to try and keep pace with him as long as I could, just because of the fact I knew that if I could run with him, I would probably distance myself from that group. And, you know, that's exactly what we did until about that halfway point, and then kind of, you know, figured things out and then settled in and kind of got in a groove from there. And it just worked out, and everything kind of aligned for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know you kind of touched on this already, but the reason why I wanted to ask you, you know, when did it hit you, was because like, that's one of those things, like you said, so you're in this, you know, a battle, or you're keeping up with Joel, everything's snowballing quickly. You're starting to figure out you're going to be on the podium. 2-lap board comes, you feel all this pressure, checkered flag comes, you did it. Like you throw your hand up in the air, you go to this sea of people, all these things. And it's like, it all happens so fast. Like I've never done it at the pro level. Right. But like it just happens. And then it's like, you get back to your trailer and you're like, holy shit. Like I just did that. And I assumed that that's how it went for you. You know, it was like, somebody's got to pinch me, because I mean, this is literally a dream. Like you're up there with Chad Wienen and Joel Hetrick, like two of the most legendary guys ever. Here's Max Linquist. You know, it's just, it's, if you could draw it up like a dream ride, that's what it would have been.
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely really didn't sink in till at least the next day. Like it really took some time. Like, it was a super cool moment. Like I really enjoyed it. It was, I mean, definitely all I, you know, hoped for and expected. And, you know, it definitely was just, yeah, like getting back to the trailer. Like I didn't really know what to do. Like, it was kind of like, all right, like that was really cool. Like, guess I'll get undressed and, you know, just kind of do my normal, like, cause at that point, you know, just, it hadn't really set in yet. So it really probably didn't set in till we actually left Redbud and we're coming home, like, and it was like, all right, like, wow, we're leaving Redbud with the 3rd overall, like in the pro class. So it was, yeah, it definitely took a little while, but definitely was a great memory, and one that'll be remembered for a long time.
Of course it will be. Did you expect this, Max? Did you expect this as a rookie? Be honest. Did you expect this?
You know, my big goals coming into the season were I wanted to consistently stay in that top 5. And my main goal this season was to get on that podium. And, you know, if not once, for sure, get on that podium. Like that was my biggest goal this year, was to get myself up on that box and prove to myself that I could run with those guys. And, you know, doing that was definitely one goal complete. And, you know, now we have to up that and, you know, achieve another one. But that was, I would say, like coming into the season, that was the biggest goal, like that we had in mind. Like me and my dad sat down before the first race and he's like, all right, so what's your goals for the year? And I was like, it's like, I want to be top 5. Like I want to run consistently every race, you know, in that top 5. And I was like, but my biggest goal is to go out there and get on that podium. And, you know, watching Bryce do it last year, just being so tight with him through the ranks, I was like, all right, like I think this is a realistic goal. And I just think that, you know, it's definitely going to take some hard work and 2 really good motos. And I honestly didn't expect that to happen at Redbud just because of my first moto, with how it went. So it was definitely even more of a blessing to get up there just with how the day went.
So do you think we can do it again? Like, can we grab another podium before the season's over?
You know, that's obviously, you know, what we're shooting for. I mean, that would definitely be another goal. And I think, you know, just after having the first one, like, you know, it makes you realize, you know, you're definitely capable of it. Now you just got to be able to do it week in and week out. And that's obviously going to be the goal from here on out, is, you know, to shoot for that box every weekend. And you know what, if we come up a little short, it is what it is. But if not, that's what we're going to be gunning for.
And you had been close a number of times, right? I mean, there was a number of fourths there. I mean, you had like 3 fourths in a row earlier in the season or whatever it was. So we knew you were close. It was just all coming together on the right day. And Redbud was obviously that day. So there was more going on behind the scenes, though. A little birdie in the form of a 7-time champ that just so happens to be your mentor. He told me that you were dealing with something coming into the race weekend. What can you tell me about that?
Yeah, you know, it made the race weekend even sweeter looking back on it now. And
I think I feel like, Max, you're about to blow everybody's mind, to be honest.
Yeah, it still blows mine. Like it with how Redbud looked coming into it, it really does, because coming home from New York, I wasn't feeling the greatest, like just really stiff and sore, like in my back area. And I've been kind of dealing with some pain like all season from my get off in Georgia a few rounds back, earlier this season. And it wasn't nothing I ever thought of. Like I crashed, I had to get off, I raced the second moto. And since then I've just been struggling every now and then, like being real tight and sore. And like after Unadilla, it really hit me hard in that car ride home. And so coming home that week, Wednesday after Unadilla, I went into the chiropractor and I asked him to take an x-ray, and come to find out I had compression fractured a vertebrae in my back. And that was really upsetting to see, because I really didn't know if I was going to be racing or not come Redbud. So I took the whole week off, didn't do any riding or nothing, just kind of relaxed, and went to go see the doctor. And I went and saw my primary doctor, and he couldn't give me an answer for sure. He's like, at this point it had been almost 2 months since I had the original get off, and he didn't really know what the correct move was or not. He didn't want to tell me, like, go ride and keep doing what you're doing, like you've been doing it. But he also didn't want to tell me, completely quit what you're doing. So I gave Chad a call, because I knew he had back problems before, and kind of, picked his mind and got to get his opinion. And I called him, and I was like, it was hard to call him, man, and be like, hey, like, hate to tell you, but I'm not, sure what to do here. And, we kind of talked it over and came up with, I'm super young at this point and have been having a good season, but obviously looking into the future, I didn't want this to be something that would affect me in long term. So we came up with that until I met up with, a back specialist and got, his opinion that I wasn't going to do any riding and I wasn't going to compete at Redbud until I got the okay. And luckily, I had some strings pulled, and they got me in on Monday afternoon, and met up with the back specialist, and he gave me the best news I could have ever heard. I really went in there thinking like wasn't probably going to be racing Redbud, and the dude looked at me and had me do a couple like physical exercises, and he's like, how do you feel? And I was like, I'm pretty sore, like I'm pretty tight, but the more I sit and chill out, the better I've been getting. And he's like, yeah, he's like, that totally makes sense. Like, he goes, I'm gonna tell you what, he's like, there's no operation for this, there's nothing we're gonna do, like it just takes time. And so he's like, honestly, he's like, I'm gonna ask you, he's like, if I tell you you can race this weekend, he's like, can you go out there and ride at 100%? And I was like, if you tell me I can race this weekend, I can go out there and ride my pace, and I can do that. I was like, it's going to be after the fact that it's going to bother me. He's like, well, he's like, looking at it, like, I'm not worried about you hurting yourself. If you go out and crash, he's like, you're already starting to heal being so young. Like, he's like, you've already started to heal. And he's like, I think, if you can handle the pain and deal with it, he's like, you've been doing it for 2 months. He goes, I don't see a problem with you going and racing this weekend. So that was, that was the biggest thing to me seeing, that was super cool to hear that. And so, Monday I went home and got on the bicycle, did some biking, and, was super pumped to hear that I was going to go racing. So I rode Wednesday evening and was like, all right, hopefully we're good to go. So came into Redbud like very unprepared, but also at the same time, very excited, just knowing that, everything worked out in my favor. Like I really thought I wasn't going to be racing Redbud, and that was heartbreaking to me. So to come in, I was just happy to be there. And then for the weekend to turn out how it did was just, it was crazy. Like, and that was, talking to Chad afterwards, he's like, I still can't believe it either. Like, a couple days ago, I didn't think I was even going to be racing this race. And then to go there and finished third overall was definitely a weekend that, just super, super standout to me.
Yeah. So you nearly didn't even race Redbud. And then you turn that into podiuming and this dream ride and all these things. But like you said, maybe that makes sense because it was like you got a new lease on this season here. It was almost like it was going to be over. It was going to be anticlimactic. Like you didn't get that podium that you wanted, and you weren't prepared to be done yet. And then you get to go back out there and finish this thing and accomplish one of the things that was circled on your list of goals and all these things. So maybe that was your secret weapon, the fact that you thought you were possibly done and then got to go back out there. Maybe that was the key.
Honestly, like when I found out like that I might not be racing the rest of the season, like because it's supposed to be like a 2-month recovery that I have to take, and
yep.
When I found that out, like that was the first thing that came to mind was like, I accomplished all my goals but one. And that was the biggest thing to me was I was like, man, like I really thought I was going to get myself on the box this year. I was like, I felt really confident in myself. And I was like, and I knew like just me personally, like out of the next couple tracks that were here, like Redbud's my favorite. Like that fits my style. Like I've had good luck there. Like I just knew like if it was going to happen, it was going to be Redbud. And for the, to hear that I might not be racing it, that was almost heartbreaking to me. And, for everything to work out the way it did, like, it was just crazy to me. Like, I was like, I definitely had a lot of luck on my side too that day. Like, it was super cool for it all to work out that way. I couldn't ask for anything different.
The crazy thought too, Max, is the Max Linquist that we've been seeing over the course of the last couple months hasn't even been the Max Linquist that is 100%, if that makes sense. Like you haven't necessarily been at 100%. You've been battling with something you didn't even know you really had going on. That's the crazy thought, because you've been so strong as a rookie. To think that you're not at 100%, that's incredible to me.
Well, thank you. And yeah, it was a shock to me, but it was honestly a relief too to find out. Like it was kind of something that I'm not one to speak up real much or say much. Like I kind of
just deal with
away,
it.
like just deal with it.
Yeah.
And it was something that like my parents honestly really didn't even know about. Like I just kind of kept it to myself. Like
mm-hmm.
I knew I was sore and tight, and I just I kind of said something at points. My parents were like, well, like take a day off and stretch, and like we can get you in and get you a massage or whatever. And it would help a little bit, but I was still like, man, like I just don't feel like myself. So to find that out was nice. And come the end of the season now, I'll definitely, once our last race hits, the plan is to take a good 6 weeks off and make sure I get it completely healed up for this next year. But it was definitely a blessing to be told that I can finish this one out.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I think that a lot of that, and you and I talked about this at the racetrack, but if you would have just been at a normal doctor, they would have been like, yeah, your back's messed up, take X amount of time off. And that's that. But you weren't at, a typical doctor. You weren't even, it wasn't necessarily just a back specialist at all. If what you told me is correct, or if I remember correctly, it's that they're used to athletes. So they knew that, man, if you're not going to hurt the thing and you can go out there and perform, man, like I'll sign off on it. That's basically how it went.
Yeah. I mean, I got lucky enough, like living here in Green Bay, we have some really good doctors with the Packers, and I kind of got hooked up with them this off season when I got myself hurt. I started working with a couple guys that work with the Packers, and so they're used to all these athletes. And I had a contact there that was able to help me out and get me in to see a really good back doctor, and he knew, like they did their research, went and watched some videos of what I did, like how I do it. And,
yep.
They knew exactly what I was doing. And when he saw me and, looked at my back, he was like, I really don't see this being with where my back was hurt too. It's right in the middle of my back, the T10. He's like, I don't think it's a big deal. He's like, I don't think there's nothing you're really going to hurt by going and racing. So he was like, with that being said, he's like, as long as you can handle the pain and take care of yourself, like you go for it. And that was all it took for me to hear to, be at the racetrack.
Well, and I think that, like I said, that was key. I just wanted to get that detail in there because, again, like enough of us have been to the normal doctor where they're like, yeah, oh, that like you got this. No, don't ride, take 2 months off or whatever it is. So I thought that part of it was key. So you overcome that. It really just adds to the legend that will be, the story that comes from this years down the road or comes in the fact that it wasn't just your first podium. You were dealing with all these other things too. So that just adds to the legend there. One of the storylines is the legendary number 2 returning to the podium though, right? And how cool was that for Jeremiah Jones to actually be there and be able to join you up on the podium? I was glad to see some of those pictures that came from that moment. Was truly a special moment. So talk about what that means to you.
Oh man, it was such a cool moment all year. I mean, I've been so thankful that family there, the Jones, they've taken me in like family, and it's been just a super cool experience. And I mean, I can't be more blessed to have, not just one legend, but 2 in my corner between Chad and Jeremiah. Like there's so much knowledge that they've been giving me, and it's been so great. And, to get up there on that podium and finally put the 2 back on the podium was so cool. And the coolest part about it to me that just sent some chills, just gave me chills afterwards when I found out. And Tammy and Jeremiah didn't say anything to me till after the race, but I think it was kind of I don't know, I won't say too much on Jeremiah's part, but I definitely think it's cool for people to know, like after the fact, they let me know it had been this past weekend had been the 15-year anniversary of Jeremiah Jones' paralysis. So it was kind of a tough weekend for him just to be at the track, and for it to work out like that for the number 2 to get back on the podium, like he said, it was super cool to see, and totally made it worth being at the track that weekend and all that. So I thought that would, like, to me, that was the coolest thing to hear. Like, like for it to all work out that way, for me to get my first podium, like just on that date and how all that worked out, like just with the whole back deal, like everything, like it just came together for me. Like there's no other way to put it to me than that. Like it was just so special of a weekend for me. And I mean, I definitely, like, that was so cool. Like, I mean, there's no words for me to put that, like how that feels. And
like it was meant to be. Like it was meant to be, Max. Like if somebody needs a proof that, like proof of faith or God or whatever, like that's it. Like it was meant to be. That's what it means, right? I mean, that's how I see it.
That's how I am. And, whatever you believe in, it is what it is. And to me, like, that was like the biggest eye opener, like, wow, like out of all this adversity, out of everything that happened, like out of this whole week leading up to it and everything, like, and then learning that about Jeremiah, like it was, and then him being there on top of it, coming up and sharing that podium with me, like it was just so special of a moment. I got to go out. We went out for dinner the night before with them, and not something I always do before a race night. Just happened. I was like, hey, like I hadn't seen Jeremiah and them in a while. They didn't make it to Unadilla, so I was like, let's go out tonight. And we went out, and right afterwards, the first thing he said to me is, he's like, I guess we're gonna have to go out more often. He's like, this is working pretty good. So it was definitely super cool. Definitely just everything aligned so perfectly, and just what a crazy weekend.
Yeah, what a special memory. As we turn the page from an truly unforgettable weekend at Redbud, and look to Loretta's next. How about a favorite Loretta Lynn's memory? Do you have one?
Probably just like there's been quite a few good ones there, but probably, the best one just being the last time I was there. I haven't been there since 2018, took that 2019 season off. And at the end of that season, I decided I wasn't going to race. And that was my choice, was not to race in 2019. So coming into Loretta's, I hadn't had a perfect weekend yet, per se, racing wise, and came into Loretta's there in 2018 and, ripped every start, led every lap, won every race. So
nice.
was just like a super, super sweet weekend, to end a year. So definitely good vibes going into there with that being my last memory of being there back in 2018. So definitely hoping for something similar to that coming here this year.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it wasn't right. It wasn't right for the series not to go there last year. It just didn't seem right. So love to hear it. Good vibes only. Max, you're the man. I'm so extremely pumped that you pulled this podium off. Seems like we've been talking about it potentially happening all year, really. And hopefully it's not like you were feeling the pressure or anything from Casey, but you made it happen. And I'm so stoked for that. And like I said, like we've been saying, it's a day you'll never forget.
Yeah, no, definitely one that stuck up there and like so special to me. So cool. Like just everyone that was there in the moment itself. So awesome. And, just so grateful for that. And so excited to see, what comes of it.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you giving us a little of your time. I'm proud of you. Like I say, every time we love having you, of course, and looking forward to doing it again sometime soon, whenever you check off the next goal.
All righty. Well, I appreciate it, Cody. As always, thanks for having me on. It's always great, and appreciate it, man.
That's podium finisher Max Linquist, brought to you by DID Racing Chain and their 520 ATV2 X-Ring chain. Congrats again, buddy. Keep up the good work. Keep all the good vibes going on. And thanks again, and we'll see you soon.
Sounds good. See you, Cody.
We'll get right back to the show, but now a word from our sponsors. And thank you for listening to these ads. Without these great companies, none of this would be possible. Show your support for the people who support us. Welcome to the team, two-time champ Joel Hetrick, who dropped the biggest news of the offseason when he announced his move to CST Tires. The CST takeover has been gaining momentum over the past several seasons, and now Joel Hetrick and his Phoenix Racing teammate Jeffrey Rastrelli are the most recent additions. The Pulse MXR tire has helped lead riders like Thomas Brown to race wins and 3 consecutive Quad Cross of Nations titles, Nick Janusa to the Pro Class podium, myself, Cody Jansen, as I rode my Pulse MXR fronts and white label soft compound rears to back-to-back national championships in the Junior 25 Plus class, and the most recent additions have us thinking a Pro Class national championship is on the horizon for CST tires. The Pulse MXR tire, available in soft and standard compounds, offers the highest level of traction, most predictable cornering, and superior wear characteristics when compared to the competition. Visit shop.csttires.com to join the CST takeover today, or prepare to be beat by someone who did. Joel Hetrick, Jeffrey Rastrelli, Nick Janusa, myself, and so many others are believers in CST tires. Are you? CST Tires, where passion meets the ground. You already know we're Team Blue Crew here at the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast. Whether it's second all-time winningest, 7-time and reigning ATVMX Pro Class National Champion Chad Wienen, or 6-time and current XC1 Pro ATV GNCC National Champion Walker Fowler, it's clear the podium-proven Yamaha YFC 450R is the winning choice of sport ATVs. This unprecedented success for the YFC 450R, its unrivaled quality and performance, and the undeniable fact that Yamaha is the leading OEM supporter of ATV racing has created a Yamaha takeover within the sport quad market. Better yet, Yamaha's Blue Crew Racer Support Program is back and even stronger for 2021, meaning Yamaha riders are about to cash in on higher payouts and more prize opportunities, including a chance to win a brand new YFZ 450R. For more info, head over to YamahaBlueCrew.com, follow them on social media at Yamaha Outdoors, and check out Yamaha's full proven off-road lineup at YamahaOutdoors.com today. For over 150 years, Valvoline has led the charge by being dedicated to constant improvement and innovation across all disciplines of racing. Valvoline has sponsored some of the greatest names in motorsports, and for the better part of a decade, I've been fortunate enough to be part of the historically great Team Valvoline. From my commuting vehicles to small engines, race quads, and everything in between, I trust nothing but Valvoline in all of my equipment. I've experienced increased function and durability, as well as a longer life expectancy thanks to Valvoline's array of products and lubricants. Since 1866, Valvoline has been focused on bettering your experience, whether on road, on track, and everywhere in between. Upgrade to Valvoline today and check them out at valvoline.com. SSI Decals is a name synonymous with ATV racing, synonymous with big-time success, and absolutely synonymous with the best-looking decals around. An offshoot of their parent company that was established in 1947, SSI first took shape from owner Ian Harris's passion for ATVs. With what started as just making numbers and decals for riders like Chad Wienen, the company quickly took off, and today you couldn't imagine ATV motocross without SSI decals. The graphics maker and designer now supports all the top teams in ATV motocross, as well as teams and riders racing GNCC, Work Series, Pro Motocross and Supercross, Canadian Pro Motocross, short course off-road trucks, UTVs, snowcross, and oh yeah, 6-time NHRA World Champion Clay Milliken. No project is too big or too small for SSI decals, making your identity stick with championship level graphics. Head over to SSIDecals.com today and then maybe call the doctor because things are about to get sick. The Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast is brought to you in part by DID and their range of championship winning chains. Powered by technology, DID chains are designed to give you the greatest strength to weight ratio, making them the optimal chain for racing and giving you a championship level edge. DID has been driving championship-winning race programs since 1933, chosen by champions such as Chad Wienen, Joel Hetrick, and myself, Cody Jansen. Champion above the rest is DID's 520 ATV2 chain, with those same design principles and materials being used throughout their entire line of products, including their on-road category as well. Pick up a DID chain today at your local dealer or a reputable online e-tailer. DID. What drives you?
We are proud to be partnered with Numira Technologies. Since 2001, Numira has led the charge in the ATV and side-by-side market, covering more applications than anyone else in the industry. Numira's advanced piston technology uses a NASA-exclusive aluminum alloy that helps to reduce expansion rates, that allows for tighter tolerances, and leads to higher overall engine performance for your machine. For more information about Numira's wide offerings of pistons, rings, gaskets, and industry-leading top-end repair kits, visit your local dealer or online at www.numira.com. Numira Technologies, pistons with an attitude. We are pleased to be partnered with Bronco ATV and UTV components. Bronco has been an industry leader in replacement hard parts and accessories for all makes and models for over 15 years. With a catalog that includes a full line of electrical components, engine internals like rods and cylinders, all the way down to suspension parts and bearing kits. Bronco is your hard part source for whatever you need for whatever you ride. Available exclusively through distributors around the world. Visit your local dealer or online at broncoatv.com. Forworks Carbon's innovative lightweight products include top-notch seat covers, carbon fiber and plastic hoods, gas tank covers, exhaust shields, shock guards, and much more. Whether you have an ATV, UTV, or snowmobile, Forworks has the goodies that will improve your ride and make you salivate. We trust Forworks for increased function and a sexier look, and you should too. Forworks Carbon, always working hard to bring high quality and innovative parts to the market. Check them out today at fwcarbon.com.
All right, back here with Casey Greek on the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast. Casey, prediction time, and I know you love these. Prediction for 2022. If you could only take one rider, who would you bet the house on between Max Linquist and Bryce Ford?
Ooh. That's like trying to get me in trouble. I have nothing to do with either one of them.
I was going to say you got right, but I was going to say you got no stake in this game right now.
I'm getting a phone call by someone's dad.
That's tough, like you said, and you kind of teed it up earlier. But this very well could be the battle going forward, the rivalry going forward. These kids grew up racing each other. They're very close to the same age. And like you said, it does remind you a lot of Chad Wienen and Joel Hetrick, because Bryce is the, crazy fast one who's going to, lay it all out there. And Max, though he is also obviously crazy fast, you don't podium without being crazy fast, but he's the consistent, calculated, kind of guy that's going to probably hit his marks every lap. But I knew it was going to probably be tough for you. That's why I had to ask the question.
Yeah, I'm like bouncing, like debating in my own head right now about this. I'm going to go safe here in a sense, and it's Bryce. It's no disrespect to you. I love you to death, and you're ridiculous. But Max's consistency, which when you look at the points right now, Bryce is going to, again, be like, what are you talking about? Look at where I'm at in points, look where he's at. But as a rookie, and with a mechanical early in the year, yeah, I think it's set Max back a little bit. I think he would have been closer in this battle for third if a couple situations didn't happen. So I'm going to go with Max because he didn't let me down this year with his podium at Redbud. So I'm going to go ahead and go with him. And like I said, it has nothing to do with either one of them. It's I think Max is the safer bet on a sense of just because he is so ridiculously consistent.
Yeah. So you referenced Max having that tough race at Georgia, a couple rounds back, where if I remember correctly, he only scored like 10 points at the event. And these guys, typically score, say 25 to 30 to, if you have a really good weekend, 30 plus. And if you factor, say you add 20 points to where Max Linquist is at, he's tied with Jeffrey Rastrelli. So he would be right in that mix. I mean, he was very consistent early. He had that one hiccup and then he's been consistent since. And if he could even just get a little bit better starts, because we've seen what he can do with some starts. I mean, he ran up front at Pleasure Valley. He was up front at Walnut for a while. I know he made a mistake there, and then we saw what happened this weekend. So obviously a tough, it's like splitting hairs there, right? But it's going to be very fun to watch going forward. So as we'll get into Bryce Ford a little more in a minute, but fourth overall on this day at Redbud was Brandon Hogue, 5.5 for fourth overall on the day. Brandon's best finish since his podium at High Point in early May. Best finish on the Yamaha. I'd go out on a limb to say I wouldn't be surprised if Brandon were to put that YFZ 450R in the box before the season is over. Brandon was good at Redbud, not flashy per se, but he was good.
Yeah, it was a quiet day for Brandon in that sense of, just the 5.5, and we kind of chalk it with a guy like Brandon, like, oh, it was just a 5.5. Like, that's still so impressive. And
in this group, yeah.
Yeah. And Brandon's not okay with 5.5. Like
we know that. Yeah, we know that.
He's like depressed right now, and he shouldn't be. I would go and say, as far as, since we're just throwing predictions out here, I would say Brandon Hogue is on the podium at Loretta, or not at Loretta's, at Briarcliff for sure.
I wouldn't. Yeah, we know he's been riding there. That's a very Brandon Hogue like racetrack. We've seen what he's done he did it at Muddy Creek last year. He's done it at Unadilla. We saw him do it this year at High Point. That's a Brandon Hogue style racetrack right there. That's why either of these tracks I could see him being special at.
Yeah, for sure. And there's still so many good things to come for Brandon in the future, and he just needs to realize that he's young. I think he's like literally just turned 21. Or like yesterday.
Yeah, today's his birthday.
It's today.
I think it's today.
Today. Yeah.
So happy birthday, Brandon. Yeah, happy birthday, Brandon.
Yeah. So I mean, he's so impatient. He frustrates me. I'm like, Brandon, just calm down, dude. You got plenty of time. You can do this. You're very young. And something, and I know we're trying to move quick, but something that is really cool to me is we didn't see guys on the podium, and we didn't see very young riders maturing in ATV motocross. You see it in dirt bike world a lot, guys 16, 17 years old winning races or winning championships. And to me, I've always paid attention to this over the last 15 years of where these guys, how long it takes them to mature, to win races or to be podium threat guys. Now we're talking about Bryce Ford. What's he, like 18, 19 years old? Max Linquist, 17. Brandon Hogue, 20. These guys are young, and they're already in the mecca of this class. Normally it would be like the guys like Janusa, Rastrelli, Joel, Chad, the guys that are a little bit older. I think Joel's like 27. And Joel obviously was when he came in, he went initially right to the front of the pack.
Yep.
But like Chad didn't start winning races. Well, he won races pretty early in his pro career, but he wasn't the guy that you were like, yep, that's the guy I'm putting money on. And now it's easy to put your money on Chad or Joel because you just know. And then, even with Nick and Rastrelli, like these guys have been around for a long time. And now you're starting to see Wesley Wolf start to mature and watch him go through. And I feel like a lot of Wesley's success this year is because he's put more emphasis on motocross, but we'll talk about him when we get down there.
Yeah. So this is I just want to piggyback one last thought on that, what you were touching on there, because I had this conversation with Chad this weekend. We were talking about Max. This was late Saturday night. He came over to my pit and I said, man, what about, how about Max? He slayed it today. He's been slaying it. And the conversation went to Max is 17 years old. And Chad, when he was 16, so similar age, was racing a Banshee at the county fair. Like, to think about where Max is, where some of these young kids are, is absolutely crazy. If you haven't heard the Chad Wienen story, go back to our very first episode and check that out. But yeah, it's truly incredible. And there's other young guys coming. There's no doubt about that. So then as we transition into the rest of the class here, the best battle in the class right now has to be for that final podium spot in the series point standings. The two front runners are Bryce Ford and Jeffrey Rastrelli, who came into the weekend tied for third. The duo found themselves locked in an epic duel in Moto 1 at Redbud. Bryce stalked the pro class veteran Rastrelli for the entirety of the 18-minute plus 2-lap moto, but could not find a way by. Then at the start of Moto 2, the two competitors found themselves deadlocked once again, but this time they were locked literally together after tangling in the first corner. By the time they got untangled, the two podium contenders had spotted the field nearly 45 seconds. Bryce Ford would end up racing his way up to ninth with his 4.9 scores, miraculously earning him fifth overall in the day. Somehow he managed to actually make up ground on the rest of the competition in the points on the day. Jeffrey wouldn't fare as well. However, he suffered a mechanical failure late in the moto. The saving grace for both of those guys, probably for Jeffrey more than anybody though, and we'll get into more of this going forward, was the fact that most of the other contenders also had one bad moto at Redbud, and Linquist and Hogue, who finished third and fourth, are a bit further back in the standings. So when the dust settled in Michigan, Ford now sits all alone in third. Rastrelli is just 4 points back. Wolf is 15 back now. We'll get more into his day going forward here. Janusa is 18 points out of third. Linquist is 24 back, and Hogue now sits 42 points back after Redbud. So the battle is on with only 4 motos remaining. Casey, who you got in the battle for third in the series point standings?
Ooh, man.
It's tough. It's tough. I know that.
Yeah.
I know that you got, obviously, you're tight with Jeffrey's crew, and I know you got some guys that you work closer with than others there. But I truly, I'm proposing the question to you because I really don't know which way I'm leaning at this point yet. Man, any one big shift, anybody can get hot. It'd obviously be tough. Hogue Brandon's a ways back. Max even at 24. That's a pretty sizable gap. But man, if a guy can put 2 podiums together and make up some serious points, man, it could still be anybody's.
Yeah, for sure. And Jeffrey's so close to Bryce, and I feel like Bryce has been hot this last few races, with the podium at Pleasure Valley, with the second at Unadilla. Bryce is really hot, but, Bryce and Jeffrey raced heads up in the first moto together, and Jeffrey came out on top.
Yep.
Jeffrey having an issue in the second moto really hurt Jeffrey there, but Jeffrey's riding is really well right now. So I'm not gonna go out there right now. We're just gonna watch this thing go. I'm just gonna stay safe here. I believe in both of them. I think they're both incredible. So it's just watch and enjoy.
Agreed. Jeffrey's been so damn solid. He finished third in the first moto. I was crazy impressed by his riding there. And if he can ride that way for 4 more motos without issue, he could very easily be the guy, because like you said, straight up with him and Bryce, the two guys that are the favorites for this thing with where they're sitting in points, they raced straight up in Moto 1, and Bryce stayed with him. Bryce stayed right there. He put pressure on him, but Jeffrey outlasted him on a gnarly racetrack. And I think Jeffrey's proven time in and time out this season that, he's been up to task. But I just thought that Redbud was going to be another test, and man, he passed that test. Moto 2, he obviously didn't put himself in a good spot, but he's only 4 points back now. And like I said, if he can continue that riding, he could very easily be the guy. And his starts, Casey, that's what's been so key. When you can come out of the gate third or fourth, things are going to go well for you more times than not. And that's what Jeffrey's been doing of late here.
Yeah, definitely. His starts have definitely improved, and he's putting himself in the position, and that's what he needs. And obviously, he got tangled up on the start in the second moto, but I didn't get to see it where we were at in the tower. You couldn't really tell. I mean, you can see the start, but you couldn't tell what happened. And to be honest, I really didn't even realize that they were tied together. They must have been just in like a blind spot where we couldn't see.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, where are those two? And then for it to be those two that are battling so close for third in this championship series, and how close they were in the first moto. I mean, it was literally one would give an inch, one would take an inch. And I was just like, wow. Like, so it's good. I mean, we're very lucky. I think the battles that we're going to see between Chad and Joel are going to be really good these next couple of races. And I think the battles that you're going to see between Bryce and Jeffrey are going to be really good this next couple of races. I mean, those have been incredible battles all year with all those guys that we've listed off so many times.
Well, it's been nearly impossible to predict. And yeah, so I knew that first corner was kind of blind for you guys in the tower, especially because we're like a lap in and you guys are like, where's Bryce? Where's Jeffrey? I was standing in that first corner and I saw it all go down. And actually, the series highlight video shows this very well, because it must have been, was it Jeffrey? Jeffrey must have had the helmet cam on. It must have been Jeffrey. And you can kind of see them their tires kind of tangle and they get stuck together. It's before they even get to the corner. It's still on the chute going in. So yeah, I mean, they got tangled and that changed everything. But thankfully, like I said earlier, for those guys, everybody found a way to have an issue in one of the motos pretty much at Redbud in the middle of the class there. So anything you'd like to note on Bryce Ford? 5th overall, he stayed right on Jeffrey, like we said, all moto long and moto 1. This is something that you and I have touched on the shows here. He's showing us more consistency and more maturity each and every weekend at this point. And I think that that's maybe the most notable thing coming out of these race weekends with Bryce Ford.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to come back from being that far back down up to 9th place, yeah, on paper, it doesn't look that impressive. But knowing how far they were down to the point, like where we literally, I thought they didn't like make it to the gate. Like, where are these guys? They're completely lost out there.
Yep.
So no, I mean, and we talk about how consistent Max is, but Bryce has really turned that on. And so for me, to tell Bryce something, to just like keep doing what you're doing. Like you're obviously doing something right. And keep doing what you're doing, and I think he's going to be just fine.
And talking to him this weekend, I think his head is in such a good place. I mean, he really seems like a guy that is maturing. He's just he was a kid and he seems more like a man now. Like he's just maturing. His head's in a better spot. And I think we're seeing that on the racetrack too. He's just handling things more maturely. And I mean, that's, if he can do that, man, these guys better watch out. 6th overall was Nick Janusa. Quieter day for Nick than normal. He was my Digging Deep ATVMX fantasy pick. Full disclosure, but he was 7-6 on the day for 6th overall, and he hung around those positions all day for the most part. I think, like I said, I probably expected a little more from Nick there at Redbud. Redbud was a place that he's podiumed before. That's why I picked him, frankly. Thoughts on Nick Janusa's day there, Casey?
Starts.
Yeah. I
mean, starts and putting yourself in position. And, I talked to Nick after the race and, in between motos, and Michael already crashed. Michael is proving facts of how I say so much about starts. Like, the guy's getting really good starts right now. He's figured out a way to make it all the way through the first turn, and he's gaining such valuable experience right now and learning how to go that fast. Michael may not exactly have the speed that, say, Bryce and Max, Joel and Chad have, but the only way you can learn that is by putting yourself in a position to start learning it. And he's proving it over and over again, and he's getting better and better results every time. And he tipped in a corner. I actually didn't even get to ask him what happened, and Nick had nowhere to go. Nick hit him, ended up putting Nick on his side, and Nick rebounded back to a 7th. Second moto, just buried start and worked his way up into 6th. And kind of a quiet day for Nick too. But I think if you start up there a little bit more, you're going to be just fine. And I mean, Nick's obviously proved that he can, and it just takes a good start.
Yeah, with that, what we call with the fantasy game tier 2, with those guys that are battling for the podium, the top 5 guys, from say 3rd to 7th or 8th, those guys right there. I mean, the start is the tiebreaker because it's like splitting hairs between them. They're so close that if you could pause time as soon as everybody's gotten through the first corner, the betting odds would be on the first guy, like every time, no matter which one of them it was, right? I mean, maybe that seems obvious to say, but that's just the facts. So the starts are so important when those guys are so close. And I figured that had to be key with Nick there, but I think he's a guy, if he does get some starts, he's going to want to be a guy that is going to end this thing on a high note. Right now, he's 6th in points, and he's been 4th or 5th in, and I remember saying this last year over and over and over again, but he's been 4th or 5th in points every year of his pro career. And right now he's not. So I would assume you're going to see him, kind of throw it in high gear. And we just went over it. I think he's 18 points out of 3rd. So he's not like way too far behind, but he's going to have to make hay while the sun shines and make it happen right now. So as we move on to the next position, then stoked for this next guy. Cody Ford was 7th overall on the weekend, his best finish since Texas round 2, and his 7th consecutive top 10 finish, which is good no matter who you are. That was doubling his longest streak of his career previously. Cody's been slaying it. Major improvements this season, Casey, for Cody Ford.
Yeah, definitely. And it comes down to starts. I've been seeing that machine up towards the front more and more this year. Mm-hmm. His overall comfortability, I think he just looks more comfortable out there. He's not making quite as many mistakes. I mean, these guys are I'm sure in their heads, they're going, I made 100 mistakes that lap, but they're not making big, substantial mistakes that we as spectators are seeing. So, and that's what's making Cody and putting Cody into the position that he's as consistent as he is, and he's another guy like Logan. They're putting it out there and their results are very consistent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a very competitive group there too. I don't know if he's the favorite. He was my prediction at the beginning of the year. I predicted Cody Ford would be the most improved pro this season. It would be hard. I mean, man, when I say that, it'd be hard to not give it to him, but there's a couple guys in the running. When you consider that question too, who would be your most improved pro? I would stick with Cody Ford. I think at this point, we'll hand that award out at the end of the year when all the dust has settled, but who would be your most improved pro, Casey?
Mine actually comes to a couple veterans. It's pretty much a toss-up for me between Rastrelli and Wesley Wolf. And I know that sounds weird, because these guys have always been fast and always been towards the front of the pack. But with Wesley getting a couple podiums this year, with Rastrelli putting himself back into podium position and finish on the podium a couple of times and battling for 3rd, I think to me right now it's still a top between those two and where each one of them ends up in the points on how they improved. And I don't remember how Wesley ended up in points last year, but Wesley's just had a couple other little things that went on, with the DNF and the first moto this weekend that hurt him in points too. But he was right in the battle for 3rd for this entire season. So for me, you take guys that have had sort of, this sounds rough, but mediocre years, at least for Rastrelli, he hasn't been happy with his results the last couple of years, and he would tell you like it's been mediocre, like I'm just surviving out there sometimes or whatever it is. And Wesley, we've seen little flashes out of him here and there, and we're seeing a lot of flashes out of both of them. So it's kind of a toss-up for me between those two guys right now.
Yeah, the other one, when I started to say Cody Ford, it would be hard to give it to anybody but him. Wesley is the one that pops into my mind just because he was a guy that came into the season having never podiumed, and we saw him, get a few podiums this season, a couple, I should say. I mean, he's got 2, but to go from a guy that's never had one to 2 in one season, and you just do the eye test, man, he's been a guy that's been in the mix all season long. And he's one of the guys that can maybe not get the best start because that's not necessarily his MO. And he just grinds and grinds and chops wood and chops wood. And the best part about all this is the story isn't written yet. The conclusion isn't written yet. Whoever probably, especially if it would be between Jeffrey or Wesley, whoever finishes the season the strongest is going to put them ahead of the other when it comes to this. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here down the stretch. But yeah, we're going to hand out another most improved pro award at the end of the season. Last year it was Wes Lewis last year by a landslide, and looking forward to handing out another one of those this season. Logan Stanfield, rock solid as always, 8-8 for 8th overall at his home race. He was also on the event shirt, which is awesome for him. This was the 5th time Logan finished 8th in the 8th spot this season. But what's most impressive, and I know this from talking to you, Casey, what's most impressive is all the hurdles he and his team had to overcome on race day. Casey, what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, on paper for Logan, it just looks like a standard day where we've been seeing Logan this year, 7th, 8th, right in that position and just being silky smooth out there all the time. And his day was less than silky smooth, having a boatload of his friends there and, all of his family there. His sister was there. I hadn't seen her at a race in a while and stuff. So with her kids and everyone. So it just, the whole team over there at TDR, Stanfield Motorsports, those guys, they really came together and worked their butts off to get Logan back out on the track with a gremlin that chased him, I want to say, like throughout the whole day. It seemed like, but yeah, a couple engine swaps when it wasn't the engine, but they had changed so many things, and it really never had anything to do with the engine at the end of it. And obviously, I think we all seen in the second moto, Logan's bike was smoking the entire moto, but that was just a breather tube. I mean, it was down to Logan was standing on the starting line waiting for his bike. Alan Myers jumped, like they get it done, roll it out of the trailer. Alan jumps on it, hauls butt up there, flies through staging, hands Logan his bike. 30-second board goes up, drop the gate and go.
Oh my gosh.
And the kid was never rattled. I mean, like I was standing in the trailer and he was sitting by his motorhome and I could see him, and I was watching him waiting for this eruption, of either him or, his father or his mother or something. And everyone was just cool and just kind of did their thing. And, the kid was dressed, ready to go. And I don't know if you've ever missed a moto, and in all the years, I'm sure you probably have, but been in that situation. I've never personally been in that situation to where, I'm literally sitting there dressed, but I could imagine how the pain would have been if he would have had to take his gear off clean and not get to go out there because of just a gremlin. I mean, nobody's fault type of thing. And he kept us cool. I yelled out to him. I said, you go up there, when you're going to have to take last gate pit because your machine's not there. I said, so just go stand at your gate and let them do the parade lap. When they come back in, wait as long as you can before you throw your hand up for 2 minutes. And then like literally just wait until they're like, oh, we're going, and then throw your hand up, try to get that extra 2 minutes. I said, because technically we have until they cross the finish line on the first lap to get you out there.
Yes. Yep.
And so I said, just go wait. And if your bike don't show up, then come back. I don't know what to tell you, but we're going to do everything we can. And those guys, they humped it and they made it happen, found the problem, got him on the track, got him up there, and he went out and literally did exactly what we expected them to do. And he rode really impressive that moto. And for everything that had been going on in his head mentally, I think that's pretty cool. I think I was more impressed by his composure the entire time. And I had even like multiple people come up and tell me like, Logan was standing on the starting line in where his bike should be at, and he should be sitting on it. And he wasn't freaking out. He never made any gestures. He never even got upset. He just stood there and waited, and then threw his hand up for the 2 minutes, rolled his bike into the gate, jumped on it, and I think he was asking Alan, what was it? What was it? And Alan's like, shut up and go, and got him on the track. And so it was cool. I mean, it was fun to, when I was a mechanic, that stuff wasn't fun. And thrashing like that when, I feel like your livelihood's on order in that sense, where you're feeling like it's your fault and you can't figure it out, and you have one job to do is to figure it out. So getting to jump in there a little bit with those guys and thrash around it's fun for me nowadays, but definitely not back then, so hats off to Timmy, his entire crew, the Stanfield Motorsports guys. I mean, everyone pulled together and really held it together for the kid and got him back on the track.
Yeah, he's a pro's pro in so many ways. He's like literally the absolute best kid. If I had a young child in the sport right now, I mean, that is somebody I would want my son or daughter to look up to, because I just feel like, I mean, he comes from such a great family. He's got such a great head on his shoulders. Again, he's a pro's pro. So it doesn't surprise me that he handled everything that way, but it still is awesome to hear. I love that kid. Quick story for you to bring it up. That actually the one time that pops into my head that happened was my pro debut at Redbud in whatever it would have been, 2013, I think. So I wrapped up the A class a few races earlier, were the number one the race before, went pro at Redbud, and there was 25 guys. Go figure, I'm going pro. So there's 25 guys. So I'm like worried to death that I'm not going to make it. So if you don't qualify in the top 16, you got to go to a race and try to qualify in that way. And this, that, and the other thing. And I qualified 12th in the qualifier, blew myself away that I was even able to do that. And so I didn't have to race or anything. Going to the line for Moto 1, I had a stator go bad and didn't get time to change it or whatever. So yeah, that did happen. It was not that fun. Let's get back to the racing nowadays though. 9th overall. So tying that up, Logan Stanfield is a badass. Awesome ride for him. 888. Awesome ride for him to keep his composure through all that. 9th overall is where Jeffrey Rastrelli ended up with his 315 scores, 3 DNF scores. Basically, we already touched on him. Wesley Wolf had a similar day. We touched on him a little bit. He was running 6th early in Moto 1, got crossed up on the big booter there after the rollers, landed sideways and broke something on his bike. Do you know what he broke, Casey?
Personally, I never really got to see it. I knew it was something in the front end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I believe it was a spindle.
Okay.
I think someone told me that it was a spindle. I never actually got to go over and ask him or ask Johnny what had actually happened. But where we were at in the tower when he was trying to get towards the finish line so he could wait to cross the finish line.
Yep.
I could see the front end was moving around quite a bit, and it's something that's unfortunately not a very frequent thing. But with the spindles that everyone's running right now, it seems like it happens to the best of them out there. And if I didn't even see what he had done, but yeah, if he got crossed up and landed sideways like that, I mean, something's going to give. Glad he's okay.
I can't believe he hung on to it, to be honest, because I saw it. I cannot believe he hung on to it. Probably only Wesley Wolf that hangs on to that thing, but not surprised that something broke, because like I said, he was way crossed up. So I can't believe he hung on to it. So DNF or 15 there for Wesley Wolf in Moto 1. And then in Moto 2, he rebounded for a strong 4th. It was only good enough for 10th overall, but only 15 points back. So it's all really out in front of him still. I mean, if he goes on a run here and grabs a couple podiums, it's doable, difficult, but doable for Wesley. And I remember just a few years back, he got his best finish of his career up till that point with a 4th overall at Loretta's. So in the back of my mind is him being good at Loretta's, and maybe that's what we'll see next weekend. Who knows?
Yeah, definitely.
So wrapping up the rest of the pro class here, 11th overall was Cesar Jimenez. 12th was Michael Allred. Vitek Nakenyak was 13th. Vince Merman was 14th overall, and 45-year-old Marshall Smith rounded out the field in 15th. Also want to note that we lost Michael Perkins to injury going into this event, for anybody that was wondering why he wasn't on the list. So Casey, leaving Redbud, there's only 2 rounds to go now. What was your biggest takeaway from the weekend, if you had to narrow it down to one thing?
Probably go with I was right.
You know what?
Ride it out here.
Right. I was going to say the victory lap that I mentioned earlier. I don't even blame you for it. And I heard you guys say something like, Cody's not going to give me that one or something like that. You guys said over the PA there. But I'm giving it to you. You said that it was going to happen at Redbud, and you were just, you were saying that, that was your risky prediction, was saying he was going to get it before Redbud, because if not, it was coming at Redbud for sure. So I don't blame you for that. As we transition out of the pro class and into the rest of the classes, there's one young man in particular that we simply have to start things off with. Let's get him in here. All right, guys, we've really tried to create a mantra of, if you ball out on the track, we'll give you a call for you to come on the show here with us. Well, this guy definitely did just that. He's been doing that all season long, really. Brought to you by Gripped Gloves. Use discount code DiggingDeep10 at griptgloves.com today, because everyone wants a good looking glove for an even better price. It's Redbud Pro Sport winner, fresh off the podium, Mr. Dane Molander. What's up, man? Welcome to Digging Deep.
Hey, Cody, thank you so much for having me here. Can't thank you enough for giving me the opportunity to be on here and talk to everybody.
Man, you've been on a tear all season long. We're stoked to have you, of course. You've been on a tear all season long, but Redbud had to take the cake. Just a few races back, you jumped into pro sport for the first time, and this weekend you go out and won an absolutely stacked class. Tell me about that. A day you truly won't soon forget.
Yes, sir. It all started with just that hole shot. Nick DeNoble grabbing that first hole shot. It was crazy. I didn't even realize he was actually out there at the time.
Okay.
Until he ended up grabbing the hole shot, holding up the one. I was like,
Only him.
Yeah. And so I was impressed. I was like, oh, I'm about to have a battle with Nick DeNoble. And I was pretty excited. Mm-hmm. And I ended up getting past him, I think within like the first lap. Okay. And after that, I pretty much just rode a clean race the entire time, waiting for Decker to come up to the pack. But he ended up breaking down that first moto, which was tragic, but is what it is. And I ended up finishing first. Plan wasn't actually to run both motos right away, but after I grabbed that first moto win, we had to run that second one.
Of course he did. So they're really only like one lap longer than what you're used to. But when you're out in clean air like that in the first moto, like, did it seem like it was super long? Like you're out there waiting for somebody to come up, or did it just seem like any other race, like all these moto wins you've had all season?
No, it was pretty much was just like every other race. I was actually really surprised for the most part. I expected me to get a lot more tired than I did. Yep. But I think I expected the track to be a lot more beat up that day than it was this morning. And it was pretty smooth of a track, and I just went out there and pretty much ripped.
Okay, so second moto, tell me about that.
Second moto, I almost had the hole shot, over blew the turn. Okay. And Kazmarek ended up coming in underneath me, and me and Zach came down that second turn, and I ended up beating him to that second turn. And from there, I expected him to be on my rear bumper for a while, which he was. And I ended up getting a little bit of comfortable gap on him and was able to continue to run my race out front, and was just waiting on Zach again, Decker coming up through the pack, waiting for him. And he ended up coming up and getting, I don't think he ended up getting Zach Kazmarek on the last lap, but they were really, really close.
Yeah. I probably had something to do with that, because I kept him behind me for a couple laps there. Probably was holding Zach up a little bit, but yeah. So we'll touch on what came after that race there and stuff, the podium celebration and everything like that in a minute here. But you almost had the perfect weekend. I kind of thought that this was a good time to touch on that. So 1-1 in pro sport, like you just said, 1-1 in 450A. You kind of been doing that all season. Then it sounded like you almost had 1-1 in 16-24 too, and then something happened like late in the race, like you stalled it or the bike or something. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so I was running college 16-24 on that second moto, and came all the way around right at the finish line, waiting for the white flag. I see the white flag. I'm coming over it on the outside, wide open, and then it just bogs out and just dies on me over the air. So first thing I immediately thought was, I got to pull in this clutch before it just locks up and I go over. Right. So I pulled in the clutch, landed, pulled off to the side, figured I was done. I figured at least I was going to try and start it and see if it started back up.
Yep.
and I started to start it and it wasn't going over, wasn't even trying to start. And then I tried it one more time, gave that starter a good push, and it started kicking over, finally got going. And I think I got passed by Van Fossen, Edwards, and I think 2 others. So I ended up in it with like 5th at that point.
Okay.
And it's last lap. There's not much I could do after that. So I tried tracking them down and I only got to 4th that moto.
You're still pretty good though, man. So first of all, those things never start. Like a quad never starts after hiccups like that. So I feel like you dodged a bullet there. Like it's crazy that thing started, but you're still sitting pretty good. 24 moto wins on the season, 11 overalls, and now doing it in pro sport as well. So you're still doing just fine. I think even though that's going to feel like the one that got away, it would have been pretty sick to have, the 6 moto wins on the weekend or whatever. But what do you credit all your success to this season? Because like I said, you've been on a tear, you've been killing it, making a name for yourself, obviously. What do you credit all that success to?
Just everything, the whole season, just from the start of in the beginning of my winters training down at Decker Training Facility. I was down there for a couple months training. I hopped around with Alan Myers and Stanfield and Linquist and Cale Deal and some other people. We all jumped around from track to track and trained all winter.
Awesome.
And then the season started and kicked it off at Texas, and I kicked it off with a really good weekend, and I was super happy. I had Casey down at my gate. I couldn't have been more happy to have him there with me. Chris McCulley, just with everything, him being my mechanic and helping me out all the time, on and off the track, the bikes, everything. Walsh Racecraft just making me a beautiful bike. This thing just handles so well at every track. Just can't compare to anything else. And then Casey again with shock suspension and setup everywhere. Just at every track, he's always got that bike dialed in for 100% at all the time.
Oh, you obviously got an awesome group. You can look at the bike. It's obviously, best of the best stuff. There's no doubt about that. Tell me about your program then, kind of piggybacking off of that, like your, as far as riding, training, stuff like that goes. Like, I'm assuming you go back to PA after the races. Like, tell me about all that.
Yeah, I'm in PA right now. I don't get to ride as much as I'd like to here. I think my closest track's like an hour and a half, which is like Breezewood.
Okay.
And they only do really weekend riding. So I get to ride here and there when I get to.
Okay.
Other than that, I'm at work. And then when I'm not working, I come back here at home and I ride the stationary bike at night, like an hour and a half, put my work in and get back up the next morning, go to work again.
You know what though? I've always thought this, like, you'd almost rather it be that way. And a person always obviously wants to ride as much as possible. Like that's obviously been a pain, that hurdle that I've always kind of had too, being in Wisconsin. But I feel like you'd almost rather have it that way, where like you appreciate when you get to ride and make the most of it, instead of like, having a track right down the road and taking it for granted. You know what I mean? It's like you make it count when, man, like your time to ride or whatever, like might be a little more limited. I'd almost like prefer that over the contrary, where you take it for granted.
Yes, sir, Cody. I think riding for me more is a getaway, and like I can kind of get away from everything else and puts me in a different mindset, and I can just ride and have fun and do what I want to do, rather than walk around the day with like a different face on, basically. Riding, it allows me to open up.
I totally get that. I'm sure so many listeners totally understand what you're saying too. So you wouldn't know it, but you're only 17 years old, right? So you don't sound like that when we hear from you. But the reason why that's relevant is I've been wanting to ask you about this for the longest time. Last year, you were riding both the 250 and the 450. And the reason why I wanted to ask you about that is because that's not something, we could do 13, 14, 15 years ago when I was coming up. And it was hard for me to even imagine what that would be like to race both the amateur and the youth classes at the same time. I think it's an awesome thing, but that was like no way that was happening back in my day. When you got to make your amateur debut, like that was a huge step. So tell me about that. What was that like to race both the 250 and the 450? I think you were racing like 4 classes, 2 on each. Tell me about that.
It was incredible. I'd go from running battles with JJ Launderville in the 250 class back to back to back. Just, it would never stop. And then I'd go to 450 class and I'd be battling with guys who are twice my age. And it's just crazy. Like, to think about the 450 class not having an age cap on it and anybody being able to be in it was kind of it kind of messed with my head a little bit going into the first race. Okay. And everybody having beards and mustaches and everything had me a little scared. Right. So I was a little nervous, and I ended up actually doing pretty well and surprising myself, giving myself a little bit more confidence for the 250 class, actually. Sure. So that kind of helped me there. But still, battling with Launderville, still never competed to anything else.
Yeah. So I truly think that rule and how that all works now, and how they've kind of morphed over time into being a little more lax, where you can race a 250, you can race a 450 if your age or whatever works out just right. I think that's a major reason why you kids are finding success so quickly on the 450s now. You're already used to that chassis. You can basically be on the same chassis that you'd be riding between the 2 classes. You're used to some power. I truly think it's progressing the sport in a major way. At least that's how I feel.
Yes, I definitely feel the exact same way. I think with taking the little kids and throwing them on a full-size chassis with just a smaller engine right away gets them ready for that bigger bike, but not as much power, not as much weight to the whole thing, and gets them used to it. And I think that's really throwing everybody to the wolves a lot quicker, but I think that's what's improving our sport a lot faster.
Well, and you tell people like I've had plenty of conversations with some of these parents that are, working on getting 250s for their kids or whatever. It's like, hey, like whether it be, a TRX with the conversion kit so you can put a 250 motor in it, or a full blown hybrid, either way, like you get them used to that chassis. Now, when they, jump on a 450, like they're already comfortable on the machine. All you're doing is changing the engine. They're going to hit the ground running. It just, it's like a recipe for success for you riders, that you can really hit the ground running, whether you're racing the 250 and the 450 at the same time, or going from the 250 to the 450. Again, like you guys are set up to succeed in a way that we weren't necessarily 10 plus years ago. It makes so much sense.
Oh yeah, no, I totally understand where you're coming from and totally agree with you. It just totally is setting all these kids up for, basically it's setting them up for success, and for them to be the best that they can be. I mean, when I ran CVTs and stuff, the stuff they're building nowadays, like these Jared Korn mod bikes and the CVT classes and these insane bikes that I'm seeing, like it would be crazy if I had that back whenever I rode. But I think it's just setting these kids up for bigger bikes, and they're just going to be faster. I think kids are going to end up being faster than the bikes that they're going to eventually have. Yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah, in my day, we rode TRX 90s and Etons and Dinleys, and then we got on blasters. And that feels like a lifetime ago when we talk about you being like, I can't imagine having this in my day. That's crazy. But Dane, so one of the things I wanted to get in, and as I was prepping to kind of talk to you, this crossed my mind that your dad was actually one of the first emails we ever received at Digging Deep. And I don't know if you know this or not, but he stated that you guys enjoyed the show, and if I ever needed a guest, that you'd be honored to join. And that kind of stuck with me. I just remember thinking, oh, that's cool. I knew obviously the Molander name at the time. This would have been 2+ years ago. And it was kind of cool because it stuck with me, like people are listening. Now, obviously we've gotten tons bigger since then, but it stuck with me that it was just such a nice message. You're a kid that I've been, cheering for from afar for a while now. And a lot of that was because of that. And every time I've had an interaction with you or your family, it's just been like super awesome. You guys have been awesome and humble and grateful and just awesome people. And so to bring you on under these circumstances after a huge win, it just seems like it's meant to be. Like, that's pretty special.
Yeah, it really does, Cody. I don't know, just from you starting this whole podcast, it's really just, it opened me up, and I think it opened a lot of people up to stuff that they didn't realize was going on, and kind of the history and everything. And it's really honestly impressive, and I enjoy it, and my whole family enjoys it, and I think a lot of other people enjoy it.
For me as the host, you hope that it gets people excited to go ride, excited more about the sport. And then stuff like this, like it gives you coverage. It gives people like you coverage that truly deserve it. Like I remember years, and this is, maybe even before Rip It Up films, before some of that stuff, but like something really cool would happen at the races. And then like, you'd be waiting for there to be cool coverage about it, and it would never really come. And I hope that we're kind of filling some of those gaps, right? Like, we can talk about the awesome race you had or whatever that maybe wouldn't have gotten a ton of coverage anywhere else. And maybe we'll talk about what happened at the podium and some of those things that people, unless you were right there, would have never known about if we didn't have this opportunity to talk to people about it. So glad to fill some of those gaps. So as I was kind of mentioning there, did you go home and have somebody buy you a bottle of champagne to start practicing for the next time you get to celebrate? Because that was a whole big thing at the podium celebration. There was trying to figure out how to spray this thing. We got all kinds of people, talking about how you're supposed to be doing it and this, that, and the other thing. It's it was a pretty awesome moment. It was a pretty innocent moment, I guess, where you just found yourself, you won pro sport, and I don't even know how to spray the champagne. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really funny. I expected you guys to know a little bit more about the whole thing, but I guess you guys were just as innocent as I was. But yeah, so the only experience I really had with popping champagne bottles was in the when I was maybe 9, 10 in the pro class, watching them pop champagne, and right in the first row, standing there getting ready to get covered and soaked in champagne.
Right.
That's about it. Other than that, I've never had an experience myself. Now, afterwards, I had a lot of people come up and talk to me about it and the whole experience. And I got talking with Mrs. Decker, and she was talking about having champagne popping classes down at Decker Training Facility this winter for all the kids, so they know what they are to expect to do.
Yeah, right. Like don't find yourself in the Dane Molander situation where he doesn't know how to spray it. Yeah, that's kind of funny. Hey, that's a good problem to have, though. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah. At least I knew immediately what I was doing. At least I didn't open it and chug the entire bottle.
Yeah, or you didn't shoot anybody's eye out, or nothing crazy happened. So that was a pretty awesome moment. So as we look forward to Loretta's next, we kind of been asking everybody this question. Do you have a favorite Loretta Lynn's memory?
Yeah, so I think my favorite Loretta Lynn's memory is so 2 years ago, actually. The last time we were at Loretta's is the first time I ever rode a Walsh hybrid, which was Zach Decker's.
Okay.
First time I ever rode one. And just from there on, I guess, is where I it kick-started me into where I'm at right now.
I was going to say where you are now. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just really think that out of everything really sticks with me. And I just think that if maybe if I didn't hop on a Walsh, maybe I wouldn't be where I am now.
Sure.
But it just, that really is really stuck with me and something I've really thought about.
That's awesome. It is crazy to think back when you're like, you start to connect the dots on like where you are and where you came from. And there are some moments like that where you wouldn't be where you are today without some of those connections. So that's crazy to think about. But man, it was awesome to get you on. You slayed it this past weekend. You've really been slaying it all year, but it was cool to be right there this weekend, share the podium with you and see all that joy firsthand. Like it was almost like, like you said, like you didn't even know that you were going to race the second moto until you won the first one. So it was almost like shock. So to see some of that, again, that joy, that innocence, that, just young enthusiasm or however you want to say it, to see all that for me firsthand was pretty cool. So stoked to get you on. Obviously want to congratulate you on an awesome weekend. Congrats to your family and all that stuff. But it was cool to discuss all this stuff, but an awesome weekend. And for the listeners out there, like, Dane Molander's a name that people are going to want to know because he's coming.
Thank you so much, Cody. I'm honored for you to have me here. I would love for you to have me on again, and just thank you. And everybody have a good day.
Man, you keep killing it, and we'll keep bringing you on. Congrats again, buddy. We'll get you on sometime soon. Congrats on an awesome weekend. Keep up the great work, and we'll see you soon. All right. Thank you again, Cody. That's pro sport event winner Dane Molander from Redbud, brought to you by Gripped Gloves. Use discount code DiggingDeep10 at griptgloves.com today. Congrats again, buddy. See you soon. See you. As the #1 podcast in ATV racing, it's only right that we partner with the industry leaders in suspension tuning. Insert Impact Solutions. Impact Solutions is a full-service ATV and side-by-side suspension center specializing in the revalving and service of your motocross and off-road suspension. With over 25 years of elite-level knowledge, experience, and testing with riders of all ages and ability levels, Casey Greek, Jay Goebel, and the Impact crew strive to exceed clients' expectations for service and setup. Impact Solutions is the official Elka Suspension Service Center of the United States, offering unmatched product knowledge and experience. Whether you're in need of service, parts, warranty, sales, or technical support, Impact Solutions has you covered. Head over to impactsolutionsatv.com or give them a call today.
We interrupt this program for a special news bulletin.
The following message is brought to you by Manscaped.com. The Manscaped engineering team has outdone themselves this time, creating the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, now available for purchase in the US and Canada. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, an official sponsor of the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast, with this exclusive offer of 20% off and free worldwide shipping with code DiggingDeep20 at manscaped.com. I'm one of the first people to try the new 4.0, and I am blown away. This thing is next level. What sets this trimmer apart from all the rest? The Lawnmower 4.0 gives you the ability to turn the LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. It features a new multi-functioning on-off switch with travel lock for those of us who like to travel. And my favorite, the new trimmer allows you to customize your trim with 4 different guard lengths, an upgrade from its predecessor that only featured 2. If you're listening, you know that good tools are a must, so wait no more to get the best tools for the job. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DiggingDeep20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com by using code DiggingDeep20. The Digging Deep ATVMX podcast is also sponsored by DP Brakes, a longtime supporter of ATV racing and the world leader in sintered brake technology. DP has been dominating the ATV world for decades, supporting the best four-wheeled racers on the planet. 2021's impressive lineup includes Joel Hetrick and Jeffrey Rastrelli of the Phoenix Racing Team, myself, Cody Jansen, and my back-to-back national championships, Baldwin Motorsports, Ford Brothers Racing, Nick Janusa, Wesley Wolf, and many more, including all of the top 14 GNCC Series pros, led by the champ Walker Fowler, Bryson Neal, Cole Richardson, Jared McClure, and Chris Borich. These top riders continue to appreciate the high performance and impressive durability that their DP brakes have to offer, products that ultimately help place them on the top of the podium. Available at www.dp-brakes.com, purchase at your local dealer, or message the show for their contact info today. What are you waiting for? Join the best ATV riders in the world on DP Brakes. 15 years into the brand's existence, Factory 43 is back with us and continuing to make huge waves in the ATV world. For the second consecutive season, Factory 43 is the official aluminum parts choice of the Phoenix Racing ATV team, providing their state-of-the-art Evo Nerf bars, MX-style front bumpers, and grab bars for some of the fastest riders on the planet. If you're in the market to upgrade your Nerf bars, bumpers, or grab bars, head over to factory43atv.com to see their full line of products available for all makes and models. Want to be just like Joel Hetrick and Jeffrey Rastrelli, riding with Factory 43's industry-leading products? Head over to factory43atv.com today. Bikes, Trikes, and Quads LLC has been supplying riders with aftermarket components from the industry's top brands for over a decade. With over 80,000 products in stock for your ATVs, UTVs, metric, and HD motorcycles, dirt bikes and snowmobiles, Bikes, Trikes, and Quads LLC can tend to all your power sports needs, from hard parts to riding gear. Bikes, Trikes, and Quads also offers hard-to-find used parts for your vintage dirt bike, ATV, three-wheeler, or snowmobile. Use discount code ATVMX at www.btqllc.com for 10% off of orders of $100 or more. We're grateful to have Bikes, Trikes, and Quads LLC digging deep with us. Thank you, BTQ LLC. We are proud to be partnered with Gripped Gloves. Gripped is an ATV rider-owned and operated brand with the rider in mind and the goal of keeping costs affordable. The Michigan-based family operation recognizes riders' desire to showcase their identity. Owner David Payne's love for eccentric colorways and crazy patterns shows in his product, something not often found in the work of big manufacturers. Here to push stereotypes and limitations, Grip's drive is to produce a glove with cool colors and designs that won't break the bank. With comfort and quality as key motivators, the family affair is constantly working on the next more innovative and improved glove. Get a grip on life, join the Gripped movement, because no one wants a bland glove. Check them out today at grippedgloves.com, that's GRIPT gloves.com, and use discount code DIGGINGDEEP10 to save at checkout. Just like the sport of ATV motocross as a whole, our Digging Deep community is brought together by the love for racing that we all share. Our sport is compiled of many great people, and leading that charge is the Launderville family at Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply. This racing-owned family business is a steel and concrete supplier serving the entire United States. Launderville Steel is a full-service steel supplier of new and surplus steel, aluminum, and stainless steel products, headlined by the 4130 chromoly tubing and plate used in the building of chassis for ATVs and UTVs, off-road truck racing, late model dirt and pro tractor pulling series, drag racing, and more. Launderville Steel loves their racing just as much as we do, but don't forget about their concrete division as well. With over 25 years of experience, the concrete division can supply everything you need to complete your next business or personal project. Their central Midwest location enables LSE to easily serve customers across the United States. For a quote, additional info, answers to more of your questions, or to talk a little racing, head over to laundervillesteel.com or give them a call today. We are proud to be partnered with yet another racer-owned company. Thank you, Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply. Thanks for listening, and remember to support our partners. Now back to the show. All right, back here with Casey Greek on the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast, and we heard from Dane Molander there. He's been on an absolute tear of late, Casey, including 1-1 in pro sport this weekend at Redbud, and you're a big part of Dane's program, Casey. So what do you have to say about this guy's riding lately? He's been absolutely slaying it.
Yeah, Dane's been on another level, and like I was talking to him this weekend, and I said, dude, if your head gets any bigger, you're not going to be able to fit through your trailer door anymore. And it's the best thing that could happen for him and for any rider, is when you start to gain that confidence and your head grows, you do the things that Dane's doing right now. And I can't say enough about the whole family. They've been great to me. They have really sort of, in a nutshell, like, here's our kid, like, guide him if you want, don't if you don't, if you don't want to. And, between, the little bit of information I can give him to help him, the information that Chris McCauley gives him to help him, we've kind of taken Dane and he's just blossomed. And that's not credit. All the credit doesn't go to, Chris and myself at all. Like, it's his entire family. It's Dane. He's putting in the work. He's doing what he needs to do. But it's just, he's firing on all cylinders right now. And he would have had a perfect weekend. Crazy, weird little malfunction on his bike and one of his motos on Sunday. And as he was leading, he ended up fourth. But I believe he ended up wrapping up that college championship this weekend, even with a 1-4. And so it would have been just really cool for him to have 6 moto wins to get through the weekend and move forward, going into the next race. I think he's got to do Loretta's in the A class to be able to lock up the championship in that. And then I think the plan is to run Pro Sport, Pro Am at Briarcliff so he can start getting his feet wet with Zach and Bryce and those guys in the Pro Am class. So, but yeah, he was a nervous wreck on the starting line for the first moto of Pro Sport. So, and I haven't seen him nervous at all. Even when we put him in pro sport at Pleasure Valley, he didn't seem nervous. He just seemed like same old Dane. He sits there kind of quiet before we talk about a couple of different things. I'll tell him some lines I've seen or whatever it is, and we just kind of talk back and forth. And he seemed different. And I started thinking about it, and it's kind of funny because, he's sitting on the starting line, Zach Kaczmarek, Nick DeNoble, Cody Jansen, Zach Decker. I mean, there's so many good guys, and I should have pulled up the results so I could have listed off some more names here that I'm forgetting now. But there's a lot of guys, and I forget that we're working with an A-class kid here that hasn't raced against you guys. He hasn't raced a pro class. Just think about it. You, Zach, and Nick DeNoble have all raced pro and done well in pro. And I told him, I said, your biggest threat right now is DeNoble because he's really good at starting. And I said, and then you're going to have to really deal with Cody and Zach Kaczmarek because they're both going to be right there. And then the obvious there too is Zach Decker.
Yep.
And something happened to Zach the first moto, so we never got to see that transpire because I really thought it was going to be a cool battle with like the 4 or 5 of you guys up there and really, be intense. And it's all about helping Dane learn what that pace is, because obviously the plan for him is to race pro sport and pro am next year. And so you got to start learning that stuff and getting yourself familiar, and I did just pull up the results there. So you have, yourself, DeNoble, Zach Decker, Zach Kaczmarek, and you got Blair Miller, Joseph Chambers. Like, these guys are impressive and fast. Chase Seeley, his results in pro sport weren't very good, but he turned around and backed it up the next day in pro am with very good results. So Dane showed up on Saturday for that pro sport moto, and that's, I think, the only thing you can say is he went out, put himself in position right after the start, and he took off. And it was nice to see.
Yeah,
very proud of him.
Yeah, great rider. Seems like an even better kid. And the interactions I've had with their family too, like you've kind of touched on, they've been like so respectful, so kind, so just awesome. And I'll say I will give you a little credit too, because Mr. Molander said to me, it must have been on Sunday, yeah, because I congratulated them on the day before, and he said, "Man, I'm just waiting for Casey to get here, like you're the key holder, So pretty awesome there, but awesome job by Dane, and stoked to get him on the show to talk about it a little bit. And yeah, I mean, it's been crazy how some of the races have went. Like, some of the races, the class is kind of scarce and there's not as much talent in it and whatever. Well, like Walnut specifically stands out to me. This one does too. Like, it was as stacked of a pro sport class as maybe we've ever seen, or at least in recent years. It was stacked as could be. And for this kid to go out and won this thing against all that talent, it was pretty freaking cool. And then to see, to be on the podium with him. So I saw all like the joy and stuff firsthand. Like, that was pretty cool too. People trying to tell him how to, my girlfriend Brooke was trying to talk him through getting the champagne uncorked and trying to spray it and all that stuff. I mean, that was cool to me to see all that joy and like just all this new feelings or whatever for Dane firsthand. Like, that was pretty special.
I'll post the entire video of that later.
Okay.
It was hilarious. You guys are like, no, do this. Both of you guys have won pro-am and done, podium stuff before. Dane's never got to do that. And so I usually don't video stuff like that. I'll take a couple pictures when I'm up at the podium, so I have some social media content. But I thought for his parents and for him down the road to be able to reflect back onto the first time he really got to pop a bottle of champagne on the podium in front of a pretty large crowd. I mean, a lot of people came down. A lot of people were really stoked on that podium. And so I was like, I need to get this video and get the whole thing. And I had a pretty good angle on it. And you could see you and Zach Kaczmarek kind of going back and forth, like, no, do it like this. And you can see Brooks right there. And I'm like scared to death. I'm like, if he gets this thing open, there's a chance he's coming over that fence and coming at, me or someone. And I've somehow, in the 25 plus years that I've been doing this sport, I have never got rooked by the champagne bottle. I've always been smart enough to get out of there early.
John never got you.
Not a chance. Not a chance.
Okay.
I'm gone by the time that stuff comes.
Oh my gosh.
I don't want to be sticky for the rest of the day. So
Right.
I'm out of here. So no, just an awesome experience. And, hats off to that entire crew over there too. I mean, they've been nothing but humble and continue to stay humble as Dane really blossoms into a fantastic rider.
Mhm.
And he's proving a lot of people wrong. I tell him all the time, like, hey, we're going to put you in pro sport. I said, but you're going to hurt a lot of feelings. And, that kind of just goes into some of the motivation I try to give him. But I don't think he's truly hurting anyone's feelings in a sense of in a negative way. But there's guys that are like, I should be beating him. And he just shows up and does it. And, hats off to both of you guys for being on the podium, you and Zach Kaczmarek. That's an impressive class right now, 18 guys strong. And I can read through the entire list. And there's not one person on that list. I'm like, who is that? Like, I know exactly who every single one of those guys are that's in that class right now. And I hope Pro-Am gets to be back to that status again. I know, the way the rules read out, some of the A-class guys can run it, but if the A-class guy, he can't go to Pro-Am. And then some of the guys that may race pro or whatever can't go to pro sport. So it plays with it a little bit on the numbers that are in that class right now. But, impressive day for Dane, impressive weekend. And the kid's been impressive all year, honestly. I mean, I don't want to say I was nervous coming into the season with him, but like last season in the 250 class, he was racing against Jaden Launderville and Kobe and Foss, and all these kids are fast. But Dane spent a lot of time in the winter in Florida and put in so much work. This year, I think they went down there like twice, and so I wasn't really sure what we were going to get from him. And he kept telling me all winter, I just want to race Pro Sport Pro-Am. I want to race Pro Sport Pro-Am. I'm like, you're coming straight off of 250. You're going to race A class, and we're going to go try to do the college class and A class and try to get you a couple championships. And, there was times where he was like fighting me about it. And I'm like, no, just do it. And, he shut me up real quick, especially when we put him in his second Pro Sport Moto race and he goes out and wins. The first one, he was second to, Zach Decker. And Zach's obviously very impressive this year.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's just all about learning for him right now. He's such a sponge. And the kid is creepy in the mechanics area. Like, I'll go to the mechanics area and he makes eye contact. I've worked for a lot of people in this sport and through dirt bikes and stuff and racing in general. And he'll literally come through the mechanics area and makes like dead eye contact with me. I'm like, wow, like I've never half the time you don't even know if they read the pit board or anything. I don't even take a pit board because I don't need to, because I can literally mouth what I want him to do.
Right. And
he goes out and does it. It's pretty funny. So generally impressed by him and, even the size of that class and all of it. So good weekend for him. And I think the ball's rolling in his court right now to go to Loretta's and, hopefully be able to lock up another championship. And I think he would be a good candidate for like an amateur rider of the year with how impressive he's been this year.
Yeah, for sure. Good stuff. He deserves all the content, all the coverage. So awesome stuff. There was a really fun weekend there. Keeping this thing rolling in pro stock, Chad Wienen completed his perfect weekend with another 1-1, but Chad even admitted Joel gave him that one. You kind of referenced it already with the mistake halfway through the final lap there in Moto 2, just got hung up on a berm for it just seemed like just a moment. And that was enough to let Chad get by. That had to be something that left a bad taste in Joel's mouth, Casey.
Yeah, I haven't even talked to him actually, because it was like they got done with theirs, and I want to say Pro-Am was coming up pretty quick after that. And so I didn't get to get back over there. And by the time I got back over, the truck was gone and he was gone, and Chad was rolling down the driveway too. So those guys were out of there, and so I haven't even got to speak with Joel after the second moto. But I think he's a grown up. Like he knew he just made a small bobble, and when you're racing on a stock machine, you lose so much momentum when you make a little mistake like that.
No doubt. Nick Janusa joined those guys on the podium in pro stock. Congrats to him. Bryce Ford outdueled Zach Decker in Pro-Am. Their battle in Moto 1 might have been the best race of the weekend, Casey. that was awesome to see. I mean, the way Zach Decker actually passed Bryce early, he led most all of the race. Bryce got by Zach late in the moto for the win. Bryce ended up taking the 1-1 victory there, but Zach gave him a run in Moto 1, and that was really fun to watch. It, like I said, might have been the best race of the weekend.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to get to see those guys, swap positions and stuff like that is impressive. And, hats off to Zach Decker. I mean, you're going out there with a guy that's finished multiple podiums. The last race, he was second overall, and racing against him and not backing down. Like, he doesn't have Zach mentally beat. Mm-hmm. Zach's like, no, I'm going to race you. And that's what he's doing. And Bryce even said it. Bryce is like, man, Zach's fast. Like, he put it to me, really wasn't like he gapped him or anything crazy like that. But I mean, he made a clean pass on him and held him behind him for a long time. One bad line is what ended up costing Zach that first moto. And that was it. I mean, other than that, and I don't know, and I haven't really talked to Zach about it, but I don't know what he was exactly thinking by changing his line there, because he had been using the outside the whole time, and it was really good. Bryce used the inside the lap before and lost time. I don't know if Zach didn't realize that. So he went to the inside thinking Bryce was going to set him up and be able to take his line away. And I had talked to Bryce, and he's like, dude, I swear, I think he just like gave it to me. And that's obviously not what happened. It just trying to, learn that racecraft. And Zach's young, so you're going to make mistakes like that until, as you go through the ranks and as you mature and learn the racecraft that I speak about all the time. Mm-hmm. And that's what he did. And it's all good. I mean, Zach should have his head held high. He's out there racing with one of the best pros in the country. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there's not a lot more you can say about that day. It was impressive.
Yeah. I mean, this is going to only benefit Zach going forward. I mean, Zach Decker is getting better from racing Bryce Ford in the Pro-Am class. Otherwise he'd be out there cruising around by himself, ahead of the rest of the field. And then we wouldn't really know, he's getting better. He's learning that racecraft. Do we think he goes pro next year, Casey?
Zach, yeah, I think he's definitely scheduled to go pro next year.
Okay.
For sure. So, which is going to open that class back up wide open again. You're going to have Dane in there, Blair Miller, Joseph Chambers, Lance Walker, Aaron Salinas should be back next year and healthy again.
Yep.
And so it's going to be really good. I mean, Blair had an impressive day on Sunday. I was really happy with the way he rode. He kind of cracked out of this like funk or shell he's been in for the last few races. We've seen him on the podium quite a few times this year, but this one was hard earned, and it was out of pure aggression and going out there and riding like he knows how to. So it was cool to see that with him, and he's in a pretty good battle in points, I want to say, with Joseph Chambers and probably Donovan Cox at this point right now. Those guys are all probably pretty close together.
Yeah. So I asked that question because some of my sources said that they didn't think that Decker was going to go pro next year. And that just came as a surprise to me. So I wanted to get some feelers on you there, but my sources are saying that they think Alan will be back. And I was kind of wondering on that at this point, which I'm stoked for. I mean, can you imagine the pro class right now and then throwing Alan back in there? I know he's one of the guys that you pull for, but really excited to see him back in there. And like you said, local boy Blair Miller too joined those guys on the podium in Pro-Am with third overall, and I was stoked to see that as well. So just a lot of great racing going on, a lot of guys that are going to be really fun to watch going forward when we look to 2022 and beyond.
Yeah, I think there's 3 points separating Blair and Joseph Chambers right now. And both those guys have been really impressive this year and putting in really good results. So yeah, I think for Zach, I mean, what's left in Pro-Am, even if Bryce ends up beating them out in this championship, I mean, they're only separated by 6 points right now. So Zach obviously still has a chance at winning the championship. And with the speed that he's showing right now, there's a chance that he could beat Bryce. I mean, who knows? That's why we go racing. We don't know what the result's going to be.
Right.
So those guys are still close in points in Pro-Am. Chambers and Miller are very close in points. So that's a good race for third. And I think both of those guys, really want to fight for that, because that's, a sense going to be, if they both were to stay Pro-Am next year, that's going to, they're looking at that like, well, if I was third this year, against Zach and Bryce, which have been on a different level, that should make me a shoe in for a championship threat next year. And I think both those guys could be championship threats next year in this class. So I would say there's no reason for Zach Decker to stay Pro-Am next year.
I think
he's having a similar year to what like Bryce was the year Bryce won the Pro-Am championship, pretty dominant, doing well. I mean, if you take Bryce, I guess Bryce has been the dominant one in this class, but I think you take Bryce out of the equation and Zach has pretty close to a perfect record in that class right now. The only person that's actually beat him in that class, well, I guess he has a 9th and a 5th. So I have to think back in the think tank here, but anyways, I think it's a no-brainer for him. And I don't have an official word like that's his plan, but I would imagine that's his plan.
Yeah, I think it was more coming from a place of just knowing how fast he is, knowing that he seems like a guy that's ready to risk it all. I think that it was more coming from a place that everybody just wanted to make sure he was like going to be able to keep himself in check when, there's guys out there going faster, or however you want to say it. So, Casey, looking at the rest of the classes quickly, it's getting to be that time of the year when a win may mean a national championship title clinching opportunity. And that's what it meant for Andrea Berger when she grabbed her 5th win of the season and successfully completed the 3-peat in the WMX class. Congrats to Andrea. And I told you so to you and Josh. And man, she grabbed a 4th overall in the B class as well. So Andrea Berger, a certified badass and the fastest woman on 4 wheels, and keeping the focus on the ladies for another moment. An up and coming star in the making is Kinsey Osborne. People know her from, being part of the Briarcliff crew, her dad owning Briarcliff over there. But she clinched back-to-back national championships in the schoolgirl class this weekend as well. Congrats to her. We talked about it a bunch on the last episode, but female, women's, girls, however you want to put it, ATV racing just seems like it's in a better place than it's been in recent years. And that's really cool to see. It's been great racing all season long. And there's a lot of other names of girls and women who should be touched on here, who are really rising to the occasion. The female ATV racing, kind of landscape is really in an awesome place, and that's fun to see.
Yeah, for sure. And, Angela would come back out this weekend to Redbud. So that was cool to see her.
Yeah, it was.
Someone that raced years ago, competitively and was there all the time. And I think she did pretty well. Neve and Andrea were so close together the entire moto. I mean, they were within, I don't think there was ever more than a second between the two of them every lap. And of course I missed the start of both of the races, but I did catch, the majority of the laps. And, those two, they're really close. And, Andrea's proven and shown that she's here and she's serious, and Neve the same way. And she's started putting in, she's putting in a lot of work right now. Neve is. And the one thing that I see with Neve right now, and even talking to all of them, is she's still young. Like, she still has a lot of time in this. And so is Andrea. I mean, Andrea is not, I think she's probably in her early 20s. I don't know how old she is, but they're both pretty young. So they're here. It's cool. I think it's good stuff right now in all these classes, and seeing, I've been paying attention to Kinsey Osborne and just hearing her name more. And then, I work with the Jackson family, so I've been watching some of Natalie's races and stuff. And yeah, that girl's the real deal. I mean, both of those two in the women's side of things, there's some heat coming for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. Speaking of the Jackson family, Mason Jackson swept the 250 classes. Kid is a monster. Casey, anybody else you want to shout out from the weekend at Redbud? There was a lot of great racing, a lot of guys that stood out. I know we touched on some of them here. Is there anybody else you want to shout out before we get out of here?
I would just say, I'd start keeping an eye on Lane Baird. I think he's had a couple like average years this last couple of years, but if there's someone that I've been seeing here in the last couple of races starting to, get back to old form. Lane was such a dominant youth rider that I think we all expected him to come into the amateur ranks and be just, as dominant. And it hasn't really happened And here lately, I've seen him starting to come around. He's kind of calmed down a little bit, and he's making some steps in his program to better him for the future and be competitive. So I think he's going to be fun to watch here. And he really enjoys Loretta's. It's close to home. You know, a lot of family gets to come out and hang out and stuff. So I think he'll be good at Loretta's too.
Yeah, that's a guy that I think a lot of people were talking about at Redbud. A lot of people were kind of taking note of the fact that he looked a little bit more like the old Lane Baird. So that was cool to see a lot of talent there. You touched on Loretta's there. You mentioned it. Loretta's is next, obviously, one of the most legendary locations in all of motocross. What's your favorite Loretta Lynn's memory that comes to mind, Casey, right off the top of your head?
I mean, it's pretty easy for me. We locked up a championship there in a very dramatic fashion with John Lane on the ground on the first turn in 2011. So it's definitely, I got chills right now just talking about it. That's probably the fondest memory of Loretta's. There is one other one, but you'd have to come ask me that in person for me to tell you. But that one's more of a personal life one. But in racing, it's definitely the 2011 championship lockup with John Attali.
Okay. That's the 10-year anniversary of that now, which is pretty cool to remember. I knew that was going to be the one that you were going to touch on. So a week from now, most of us will be headed down there to Loretta Lynn's. Give us a rider to watch in Tennessee next weekend.
I'm going to stay with Lane Baird on that one.
Okay.
I'd be interested I want to see if Dane can do it again in pro sport. We're gonna run pro sport again with him, and I want to see if he can pull that off and be able to back it up. Or I think he's going to be a solid podium guy there for sure. Either way, but yeah, I want to see Lane continue to grow. He's a good kid from a good family. Obviously, I don't actually really have anything to do with like his suspension or anything like that in his program right now. But I obviously have some pretty heavy ties to the Baird family from years ago of being his mechanic for quite a while. But the kid's good, and it's just ironing out the details right now. And I think that's what he's starting to do.
Yeah, for sure. I think that we are going to see good things from both of those guys as we look at the pro class. I think we've already mentioned it, but I think Nick Janus is going to be a guy to focus on. There's obviously pressure on both Jeffrey Rastrelli and Bryce Ford to step up when kind of it matters most right now. Like the game is on the line. I expect big things out of Brandon Hogue. I mean, Wesley Wolf's been good there over the years. So a lot of guys to watch. But on that note, let's call it a wrap, Casey. Redbud was crazy. It might've been as crazy as any of the races so far, just with stuff happening to guys all over the place. And Loretta's is always wild as well. So I don't think that we can expect anything less. Do you?
No, for sure. I mean, you can look at the forecast for Loretta's and just basically take it and throw it out the window because you don't know what's going to happen. It can just literally dump buckets of water 1 minute, and then 3-4 minutes later, it's completely back to just being the hottest, most humid place on earth that you've ever been. So, and then you can go there 1 year. 1 year we were there and it was like 75 the entire week.
Yes, I remember.
Like I'm just like, what? You come out with a hoodie on in the morning. That doesn't happen there.
No, it doesn't.
So yeah, I mean, I'm excited for Loretta's. I think the way it looks right now, I'm gonna have my whole family there. So I'll have all my little ducklings. The wife will be there. I think my sister-in-law's coming down.
Nice.
So it's gonna be really cool to be. I don't know. This might be my little guy's first race, which is really weird because my first child was at a race at 4 days old. So, but now with school and just so many different things, he came to races last year. I'm wrong. He was at some races last year. So yeah, they've all been at the races very early this year. This will be the first race that they get to go to just with the way my schedule's been, but I'm really excited about them coming to the race and getting to hang out with them. And now that he's running around and he's going to be a trip down there. So looking forward to that. And as always, Loretta's, it's just fun there.
Yeah, there's something special about Loretta's, obviously. Can't wait for that one. That's one for me that's been circled on the schedule for a long time, especially not being able to go there last year because of COVID and running the Pro National there twice and all those things. It was missed last year. So it just feels right to go back there, and we can't wait for that. We got to thank Rocky Mountain ATVMC. Click that banner on our website to get your parts, gear, and what have you, and to help us out. And thanks to you, Casey. Thanks for fitting us in for another review pod. Always love these conversations. Like I say, almost every time, I'm more excited to go racing or more excited for the races than ever when I come away from these conversations. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. And all weekend I had people telling me how much they enjoy you on the podcast. So we just really appreciate your time and expertise, knowledge, all those things that you give us here on Digging Deep.
Yeah, and again, like always, thanks for having me. I do enjoy it. It's cool. And it's cool hearing from people that are listening to the show, and like people will make comments. I got tagged in like one of the posts that you posted of the results of the weekend. Like, look, Casey was right. Like, that's cool. At least like we know someone's listening.
Right. Yeah.
And we're not just wasting our time here, but hats off to you and your brother and everyone for doing this, because we haven't had these media outlets for years. I was messaging with a guy that has nothing to do with racing at all. He's actually a guy that helps me out, like when I'm out of town and I need something done that my wife can't do or whatever. And he didn't even know what I did for a living. Like, he didn't know I had any ties to racing, because if you come to my house, literally, like, you don't really know, besides I got a few number one plates hanging in my garage and a nice toolbox sitting in there that I don't use. I tried not to use, at least.
Right.
But he's friends with my brother-in-law and was over talking to my brother-in-law, and my brother-in-law explained to him a little bit about what I do. And the guy, I mean, he literally sat, and I had been up for like 30 something hours yesterday straight. And he was texting me, and I was like literally just trying to sit on the couch and relax, but I didn't want to be like that guy. So I was like explaining to him a little bit, and I got to go down memory lane a little bit and send him some pictures, because he was bringing up Baja and all this different stuff of racing. So I got to go down memory lane and sent him a bunch of pictures, and he come over yesterday evening and he's like, I had no idea. And so it's cool. And so he was talking about how there is no media outlets, and you don't get to follow some of this stuff. And so that's what I'm saying in this long drawn out story here is, thank you guys, and thanks for the idea and taking a risk on the sport to be able to support you and follow your dream with this stuff. And Dallas, the same thing. I know all of us have very busy schedules, and so this is always pretty easy for me to fit in.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, obviously, again, we appreciate you fitting it in, and it's cool. I mean, we've been embraced enough to the point where these episodes average almost 80,000 listeners, no matter who we have on. So it doesn't matter if I talk to Chad and Joel and whoever, like we did after Daytona, which has now become our biggest episode ever. Or we have an episode with not necessarily the headline guys, and the listener numbers are almost exactly the same, which is awesome. It's the people are tuning in each and every week. 80 countries we're being listened to in at this point, and it's just awesome. So you're a big part of our growth, Casey. You're a big part of everything we do, and I appreciate, again, all that you bring to the show. So I just appreciate you always making the time for us.
Not a problem, Cody. Thank you guys.
Always enjoy having you, Casey. Looking forward to doing it again soon. Looking forward to Loretta's. And thanks to Impact Solutions, Rocky Mountain ATVMC. Thanks to you, Casey, and we'll see you soon.
See you, Cody.
Man, Redbud was so sick. Now bring on Loretta's. Major thanks to tonight's guests, Max Linquist, Dane Molander, and Casey Greek. Thanks to producer Dallas Jansen, my brother. Thanks to Brooke and AMA official Harv Whipple. Thanks to Dale Yammer, my man. Thanks to our sponsors, CST Tires, shop.csttires.com, Yamaha thanks to Blue Crew, Valvoline, SSI Decals, DID Racing Chain, Namura Technologies, Bronco ATV and UTV Components, Impact Solutions, Lunderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply, Forworks Carbon, DP Brakes, Gripped Gloves, Factory 43, Bikes, Trikes, and Quads LLC, and Manscaped. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DIGGINGDEEP20 at manscaped.com. So Support the brands that support our show, and don't forget to use those codes to save. You can find it all on our website, and be sure to click the Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner for all your gear and parts needs and to help us out. And most of all, thanks to you guys for listening. Our show merchandise, including Digging Deep shirts and hoodies, our Quad Guys Get Hot Chicks shirts and hoodies, back-to-back national champ merch, and more, are all available at shop.diggingdeepatvmx.com. If you're looking for another easy way to help support us, visit our website and click the Buy Me a Coffee button. This allows you to set up a one-time or monthly contribution to support our efforts. You can call our voicemail line anytime, 920-569-3519, and follow the show on social media, Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, and myself, Cody Jansen, for additional content, Digging Deep ATVMX Fantasy Info, and more as we get into the home stretch of the season here. Reminder that lineups do not roll over for ATV Fantasy, so head over to atvfantasy.com right now and select your team and lock it in up to 1 hour before Moto 1 at Loretta Lynn's. So that's 12:30 local time, Central Time. Thanks so much to everyone who's playing. This has been so much fun, and congrats to our 2 winners from Michigan, Shane Shimon and Logan Jones. Congrats to those guys. Went out on a limb, listened to Casey, went out on a limb and picked Max Linquist, and it paid off in a major way. So congrats to those guys. As for the podcast, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and more. Wherever you find podcasts, you'll find the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast. All episodes, additional podcast providers, sponsor links, and discount codes, our new show merchandise, fantasy info, and more can all be found on our website, diggingdeepatvmx.com, so check that out today. Be a friend, tell a friend, please download, subscribe, rate, review, and share. And with that, for Max Lindquist, Dane Molander, Casey Greek, Brooke Catherine, Dallas Jansen, and I'm your host, Cody Jansen, thanks for listening to the #1 podcast in ATV racing, 2 million downloads and counting. Until next time, thanks for joining us and digging deep with the stars of ATV motocross. Now let's go racing at Loretta Lynn's. I was born a coal miner's daughter. Things are crashing and burning here at the Digging Deep podcast, much like the Titanic.
Those guys were hauling ass, for real.
I remember watching Doug Gus, I don't know who it was, Steel City, running the same times Friday afternoon as James Stewart was on Sunday back then. It was mental. I've never seen quads go that fast.
Quad leaders are freaking gnarly.